Chapter 58:13. Originally, he wanted to get to know Shang Yuhua in the best way possible, but now it was all ruined. It was estimated that Shang Yuhua would not only have a bad impression of him, but also despise Wei Shenjin. Zheng Tianqing's ugly behavior was really disgusting. Lin Yi did not want this guy to affect other people's appetite, so he simply knocked him out and asked the guards to take him out. The rescued guard looked at Lin Yi gratefully and almost knelt down to thank him. However, he did not know that Zheng Tianqing would be like this. The mastermind behind this was Lin Yi. After sending Zheng Tianqing away, Lin Yi turned back to Wei Shenjin and said, "What are you worried about? What happened just now was not your fault. You don't need to be responsible for it." Wei Shenjin still lowered his head and did not dare to look at the Universal Chamber of Commerce. It seemed that his confidence had been seriously damaged. Lin Yi suddenly felt that he had let Zheng Tianqing off too easily just now. It seemed that he had to continue to teach him a lesson next time. However, the more important thing now was to let Wei Shenjin regain his confidence. Lin Yi thought that there was no good way. He just saw the three people at Shang Yuhua's table leave, leaving only her and the middle-aged man from the Universal Chamber of Commerce. So he stood up and pulled Wei Shenjin to go there directly. Wei Shenjin was shocked. How could he have the courage to face Shang Yuhua, especially after what had happened just now? When he was pulled by Lin Yi, he could not resist. Even if he could resist, he did not dare to have the thought of resisting. "Hello, I am Lin Yi from the Tianan Pavilion. This is my friend, Wei Shenjin from the Snow Sword faction. Can we sit here?" Lin Yi walked over with Wei Shenjin and asked politely with his fists cupped. The middle-aged man was slightly surprised. After all, he had seen what had happened just now. However, after Lin Yi introduced himself, he immediately stood up with a smile and cupped his fists. "Oh, Master Lin from the Tianan Pavilion. I've heard a lot about you. I am Shang Wani, the Vice President of the Universal Chamber of Commerce. This is my daughter, Shang Yuhua." Since Shang Wani had stood up, of course, Shang Yuhua could only stand up and salute Lin Yi. She seemed to have a good attitude. Although Lin Yi had some conflicts with the Universal Chamber of Commerce before, it was between the branch of the Universal Chamber of Commerce in the North Island and had nothing to do with the headquarters of Zhongdao. Of course, Shang Wani would not do anything to Lin Yi. "Master Lin, young hero Wei, please sit down. It's my honor to meet you too." Shang Wani laughed and invited Lin Yi and Shang Wani to sit down. Then he asked the waiter to bring their food over and ordered a few more dishes. However, he did not say a word about why Lin Yi and Shang Wani came here. This was the old fox in the business world. If you pretended to want to know the purpose of others when they came to you, you were not the material to do business. Wei Shenjin lowered his head slightly and looked a little uneasy. Lin Yi could only scold him for being disappointing in his heart. How could a man be shy? Lin Yi had no choice but to say, "Here's the thing. I had some dealings with the Universal Chamber of Commerce before. I also heard the name of Vice President Shang in Zhongdao. I just saw you here, so I took the liberty to come over and say hello." Shang Wani laughed and said, "Master Lin, you are too polite. What kind of reputation can I have? In Zhongdao, Master Lin, you are the man of the moment, especially the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. Let's not talk about their past glory. When Master Lin wasn't around, they went into hibernation for a period of time. But once he returned, the Heavenly Pill Pavilion immediately soared." Lin Yi had a good impression of him, so he smiled and said, "Heavenly Dan Pavilion is just a small elixir pavilion. It can't compare to a big chamber of commerce like the Altong Chamber of Commerce. It's too much to say that it's soaring. It's all because of everyone's care. Vice President Shang is the real elite of Middle Island. Even Miss Shang is so outstanding. The Altong Chamber of Commerce will definitely become more prosperous in the future." This time, the main purpose of his visit was to matchmake Wei Shenjin and Shang Yuhua. Of course, he had to bring the topic to Shang Yuhua. Lin Yi just felt that his change of topic was a little stiff. Was it too obvious? Shang Yuhua curled her lips with some disdain. Although it was only for a moment, Lin Yi caught it. What did this girl mean? Was she looking down on me? On second thought, Lin Yi understood. Shang Yuhua probably thought that Lin Yi wanted to pursue her, so she specially came to talk to him. Who didn't know the two beauties of the Tiandan Pavilion in Zhongdao? They were all Lin Yi's people. Now he wanted to provoke her, Shang Yuhua. It was reasonable for him to be despised by her. Thinking about this, Lin Yi suddenly didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If he really wanted to pursue Shang Yuhua, it was not him, Lin Yi, but Wei Xinjin. When Shang Wani heard Lin Yi's praise, he laughed and said, "Master Lin, you flatter me. You're the real young hero. My daughter is definitely not comparable to you, Master Lin." After complimenting each other for a while, Lin Yi turned to Shang Yuhua and said, "Miss Shang, I heard that you have the water's spiritual root, right? Do you usually practice the martial arts of ice and snow? My brother, Wei Xinjin, is a great expert in this area. You could talk about this." The purpose was too obvious, and Lin Yi was helpless. There wasn't much else he could say if he kept talking about it, so he might as well make things clear first. He didn't want Shang Yuhua to think that he was the one chasing her. Shang Yuhua was slightly startled. She glanced at Wei Xinjin and said lightly, "I'm not interested in the martial arts of ice and snow. Thank you, Master Lin, for your concern." Wei Xinjin's face turned pale. He lowered his head and became even more silent. Lin Yi thought that this was not good. It was not good to continue like this. He had to find a way to change Shang Yuhua's impression of Wei Xinjin. Unfortunately, before Lin Yi spoke, Shang Wani said, "Master Lin, the elixirs sold in your Tianan Pavilion are all high quality. I wonder if you can cooperate with our Universal Chamber of Commerce. Please believe that we will definitely give you the greatest sincerity." Originally, Shang Wani would not take the initiative to mention this. However, he could also see that the purpose of Lin Yi's visit was not to get to know him, Shang Wani. Instead, he wanted to matchmake Snow Sword Faction's Wei Xinjin with his daughter. Since this was the case, it was better to quickly mention the cooperation, lest he miss the opportunity. Chapter 58:14. Shang Wani's face suddenly darkened. He nodded lightly and said, "Master Lin is right. I was rude. The elixir business was definitely a profitable business." Shang Wani proposed to cooperate with Tiandan Pavilion because he wanted to get the selling rights of Tiandan Pavilion's elixirs at a price lower than the retail price of Tiandan Pavilion, and then sell them to the West and North Islands through the Universal Chamber of Commerce. Just like how the high-grade pills in the East Continent were prohibited from being sold on other islands without a permit, the pills on each island were also prohibited from being sold on other islands without a permit. If one was caught doing so, they would be labeled as a smuggler, and there was nothing left for them to discuss. Now Tiandan Pavilion's elixirs were in the limelight. If someone wanted to buy them on the Middle Island, he could go directly to Tiandan Pavilion. However, the elixirs of Tiandan Pavilion couldn't be bought on other islands for the time being. Shang Wani was interested in this business opportunity. However, without the permission of Tiandan Pavilion, even if he bought the elixirs, he wouldn't dare to sell them on other islands. Lin Yi's meaning was also very clear. If the elixirs of Tiandan Pavilion were to be sold on other islands, the first choice would be the Hong's Chamber of Commerce, not the Universal Chamber of Commerce. Since there was no possibility of cooperation, Shang Wani's attitude toward Lin Yi naturally became cold. Wei Xinjin was secretly anxious and thought, "Boss, aren't you here to help me matchmake them? Why did you directly refuse him like this? You should at least respond perfunctorily and say something like, 'I'll think about it.' Or is this boss's strategy of loosening the reins only to grasp them better? Forget it, forget it. I can't understand boss's wisdom. I'd better follow boss firmly." Thinking about how his impression in Shang Yuhua's heart was probably quite bad, even if Lin Yi perfunctorily brushed off Shang Wani, there might not be any changes. Wei Xinjin was a little disheartened. He could only hope that his boss had some way to reverse the situation. Lin Yi knew that Shang Wani valued the reputation of Tiandan Pavilion, but he just couldn't agree to anything. Therefore, he didn't care about the change of Shang Wani's attitude. Instead, he began to focus on building a bridge between Wei Xinjin and Shang Yuhua. "Miss Shang, as far as I know, if a person with a water spiritual root can cultivate an ice and snow martial skill, its power will be more powerful than a pure water martial skill. Actually, you can give it a try. Isn't the purpose of our cultivation to pursue powerful abilities? If you can give some pointers to Wei Shinjin's water martial techniques, that would be even better. Lin, he couldn't think of any better ideas at the moment, so he could only forcefully create a topic for the two of them to talk about. Although Wei Shinjin was grateful for Lin Yi's efforts, he didn't have any expectations. It was probably impossible for him to have a good chat with Shang Yuhua today. Sure enough, Shang Yuhua said to Lin Yi indifferently, "Master Lin, I know my own situation very well. I'm not interested in ice and snow martial skills. As for teaching others water martial skills, I don't think I have the ability to do so you don't have to say any more." Previously, when Shang Wani was enthusiastic towards Lin Yi, Shang Yuhua would still have some scruples. But now, there was no need to be polite. She was just short of telling Lin Yi to mind his own business. Lin Yi didn't know what to say for a moment. Wei Shinjin was such a disappointing thing. He didn't even have the courage to talk to Shang Yuhua. Relying on Lin Yi alone wouldn't be of much use. Shang Yuhua's pretty face was frosty. She turned to Wei Shinjin and said, "I've heard of you. Originally, I thought you were a person worthy of sympathy. But now it seems that I thought too much. Just now, you took the initiative to provoke Li Zhaoyi from the Dan Hall. Later, you realized that there was no chance, so you turned to provoke me, Shang Yuhua. What kind of person do you think I, Shang Yuhua, am? Do you really think that you can provoke me at will?" Wei Shinjin's face became paler and paler. He quickly shook his head and waved his hand. "It's not like this, Miss Shang. Listen to my explanation. There is nothing to explain. I, Shang Yuhua, am not deaf or blind. Don't tell me that I don't know how to distinguish what I saw with my own eyes," Shang Yuhua said coldly. She didn't want to give any patience to Wei Shinjin. Wei Shinjin was suddenly speechless. When facing Shang Yuhua, he already had some symptoms of brain short-circuiting. Now that she said it, his mind was even more blank, and there was no possibility of thinking. Lin Yi raised his hand and said, "Miss Shang, you really misunderstood what happened just now. Didn't you see what happened to Zheng Tianqing later?" Wei Shinjin did lose his composure in front of Li Zhaoyi, but I can guarantee with my name, Lin Yi, that from the time we sat down to the time it happened, he didn't look at Li Zhaoyi at all, because you attracted all his attention. In this case, do you think he would suddenly do those things to Li Zhaoyi? Shang Yuhua's pretty face was slightly red. Obviously, she didn't expect Lin Yi to say it so straightforwardly, but this didn't change her view of Wei Shinjin. "Master Lin, I said that you don't need to worry about my affairs. As for your friend, I, Shang Yuhua, am also not interested. Can you understand what I mean?" Wei Shinjin was quite depressed. He nodded slightly and said, "I understand, boss. Don't say anything more. Let's go." Shang Yuhua waved her hand and said, "You don't have to go. I'm already full. Father, let's go. Let Master Lin and his friend enjoy the food slowly." "Well, Master Lin, enjoy your meal. I'll leave first." Although Shang Wani was not as enthusiastic as before, he still did the proper etiquette. He stood up and cupped his fist to say goodbye. Then, without waiting for Lin Yi's answer, he left with Shang Yuhua. "Boss, thank you for helping me this time. It seems that I and Shang Yuhua are not fated to be together." "No, it's not fated to be together. Let's just forget about this matter." Wei Shinjin sighed and shook his head unconsciously. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, "Are you a person who gives up so easily? Or should I say, you actually don't really like Shang Yuhua? Otherwise, why would you give up so easily? Nothing in this world is easy to achieve. The more difficult and dangerous it is, the more precious it is in the end. If you aren't afraid of regretting in the future, then you can give up. But if you really like Shang Yuhua, you better pull yourself together." "Boss, I really like Shang Yuhua." Wei Shinjin suddenly straightened his body and said solemnly. But then he collapsed again. "But she has made it clear that she doesn't want to see me. What should I do?" Chapter 58:15. Wei Shinjin's eyes lit up. He nodded and said, "Boss, you're right. With Shang Yuhua's talent, appearance, and family background, if it was easy to pursue her, she would have been taken back by someone else. I can't give up. As long as I don't give up, there will be a chance. It's good that you can think that way. Come on, Hurry up and finish eating. We'll go back first. There will be plenty of opportunities on the way to the northernmost island. There will be a time when you can make Shang Yuhua look at you differently. Lin, he was also relieved. At least, he managed to appease Wei Shenjin. He didn't completely lose confidence. It's not easy to be a matchmaker. Lin, he thought of the vow he made when he was the matchmaker for Zhou Ruoming and Liang Ruoqing in the secular world. How could he forget it so quickly? Even if he succeeded in matchmaking this time, he definitely couldn't be the host of the wedding anymore. When Lin Yi and Wei Shenjin finished eating, there were fewer people in the small restaurant. The Okuda Dam fleet would only finish loading and unloading the goods tomorrow morning, so they had to wait until tomorrow morning to set off. Lin, he was thinking if he should go back to the Tiandan Pavilion first. It wouldn't be too late to come back after daybreak. However, there wasn't much time left until daybreak. The goods of the fleet might have finished loading and unloading in advance, so he didn't get off the ship. On the way back to his room, Wei Shunjin was worried and complacent. Lin, he told him to go back to sleep, lest he got schizophrenia. Remembering that he still owed Ho Guanxi a mountain-gazing pill, Lin Yi went to his room. "Brother Ho, are you resting?" "I'm Lin Yi." Ho Guanxi quickly came to open the door. It seemed that he didn't rest much. "Brother Lin, it's great that you can come to me. Please come in. Originally, I was thinking of going to look for you, but I didn't want to disturb your rest, so I didn't go. Brother Ho, if you need anything, you can find me at any time. Don't be shy." Lin, he said with a smile, and followed Ho Guanxi into his room. After the door was closed and the restrictions on it took effect, Lin, he took out a jade bottle and said, "Brother Ho, this is a mountain-gazing pill. Take it back and report." "Brother Lin, you've already refined the mountain-gazing pill?" Ho Guanxi said in surprise. At the same time, he eagerly took the jade bottle and opened the bottle cap to have a look. A faint pill fragrance wafted into the air. Ho Guanxi's spirit was instantly shaken, and his cultivation showed signs of loosening. However, he did not dare to smell too much and quickly closed the bottle. The mountain-gazing pill was not something he could use at his current level. If he used it, there would only be disadvantages and no benefits. It's really the mountain-gazing pill, and it's a special grade mountain-gazing pill. Ho Guanxi looked at Lin Yi in amazement. This quality of a mountain-gazing pill was not something that any profound level 1 alchemist could refine. Perhaps even a profound level 2 alchemist could not guarantee that they could refine a special grade mountain-gazing pill. More importantly, how long had it been since Lin Yi obtained the mountain-gazing stone? He was simply a monster in alchemy. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, "Brother Ho, actually, I refined this mountain-gazing pill using the divine sense pill fire. If possible, I suggest that you also cultivate your divine sense, and then try to condense the divine sense pill fire as soon as possible. In this way, it will be very helpful to your alchemy ability." Ho Guanxi was slightly startled, and then nodded with a dignified expression. "Thank you, Lin brothers, for reminding me. I will find a way to temper my divine sense. If there's a chance in the future, I will also find some cultivation methods related to divine sense, and strive to condense the divine sense pill fire as soon as possible." When Ho Guanxi, Kai Zhongyang, and others failed to condense the divine sense pill fire, he did not pay too much attention to it. Anyway, not having the divine sense pill fire did not affect alchemy. After all, he was still familiar with the various attributes of the true Qi pill fire. But after seeing the special grade mountain-gazing pill refined by Lin Yi using the divine sense pill fire, Ho Guanxi made up his mind to find a way to improve the strength of his divine sense. Not only must he condense the pill fire, but he must also have enough divine sense to support the divine sense pill fire to refine a furnace of pills. Although this was not something that could be achieved in a short period of time, he must first pay attention to it. Lin Yi smiled and said, "If Brother Ho can successfully condense the divine sense pill fire, I believe that with Brother Ho's alchemy level, you will definitely have a major breakthrough. Then I will thank you for your auspicious words." Ho Guanxi smiled and cupped his fists towards Lin. "Since I want to cultivate my divine sense, Then I will shamelessly ask Brother Lin for a favor. Brother Ho is too polite. If there's anything you need, just tell me. As long as I can do it, I will absolutely not say no. Lin Yi said solemnly. For Ho Guanxi, he was really grateful, not to mention taking care of the Tiandan Pavilion. Just this time, the mountain gazing stone and the spirit tempering pill were things he urgently needed. It was simply a great help. Ho Guanxi laughed and said, Then I will thank Brother Lin in advance. In fact, I have kept all the divine sense grassroots he gave me. As for the mountain gazing stone, I use my own things to exchange for it. Now I can't condense the divine sense pill fire, so it is impossible to refine the spirit tempering pill. But if I want to cultivate my divine sense, the spirit tempering pill is the best thing. So Lin immediately understood the meaning of Ho Guanxi. He wanted to ask Lin Yi to refine the pill. But this was a trivial matter. Refining the spirit tempering pill was originally in Lin Yi's plan. Refining it once or twice was not a big deal at all. Brother Ho, rest assured, I can definitely refine the spirit tempering pill. Just leave this matter to me. Lin Yi smiled slightly and said very straightforwardly. Ho Guanxi was suddenly overjoyed with Lin Yi refining the mountain-gazing pill. How could he fail to refine the spirit-tempering pill? If he could have 20 or 30 spirit-tempering pills, it was possible for the strength of his divine sense to increase by more than 10 times. Unfortunately, he also knew that this was only a dream. The spirit-tempering pill was not effective. Even if he really had 20 or 30 spirit-tempering pills, the restrictions would not be able to improve his divine sense that much. Lin brothers, these are the divine sense grassroots you gave me. You can see how many you can refine. The rest will be your reward. And if you successfully refine the spirit-tempering pill, I only need half of it. Ho Guanxi took out the jade box that Lin Yi had given him before. The divine sense grassroots inside had not been moved. There were still as many as before. Although he said half, in fact, Ho Guanxi thought that about 10 or so spirit-tempering pills would be enough for him. He could still exchange them for other heaven and earth treasures. Chapter 58:16. Ho Guanxi was slightly stunned, and then he burst into laughter and said, All right. I misspoke. Since that's the case, then I won't hold back. In the future, Brother Lin, your business is my business. If you have any instructions, I won't refuse. Brother Ho, you're too kind. Tian Chan and Sydney have always been under your care. Don't worry about such a small matter. Lin Yi smiled and waved his hand as he took the jade box from Ho Guanxi's hands. In fact, Lin Yi didn't even want to accept the consciousness grassroot. Giving 10 or 20 spirit-tempering pills to Ho Guanxi was a small matter, but Ho Guanxi would be too embarrassed to accept it. Since that was the case, there was no need for the trouble. Brother Ho, last time you said that these consciousness grassroots can be divided into 30 to 40 portions of spirit-tempering pill ingredients. Is that right? Lin Yi shook the jade box and smiled at Ho Guanxi. Ho Guanxi nodded. That's right, to be precise, it can be divided into 36 portions of ingredients. Of course, there are always failures when it comes to making pills, but with Brother Lin's ability, I think 20 pills shouldn't be a problem, right? Huh, Brother Ho, aren't you underestimating me a little too much? Lin Yi looked at Ho Guanxi oddly. A normal refiner with a 50% success rate was already pretty good, but Ho Guanxi's Shinnon Cauldron and the automated refinement system were heaven-defying existences. A 100% success rate was considered a failure, and exceeding 100% was a normal phenomenon. Ho Guanxi was pleasantly surprised. Could it be that Brother Lin's success rate is quite high? Could it be 90%? This was already Ho Guanxi's bold guess. As for a 100% success rate, other than Zhang Liju, no one else on Sky Class Island could achieve that. Lin Yi smiled mysteriously and did not answer Ho Guanxi. His Shinnon Cauldron was a secret. It was better not to let others know, even if Ho Guanxi was a trustworthy person. Brother Ho, let's not talk about Dan first. In fact, I want to say that these spiritual awareness grassroots are far more than 36 sets of materials. Lin Yi did not open the jade box, but he also knew how many spiritual consciousness grassroots were inside. After all, he had personally placed them inside. Ho Guanxi immediately shook his head and said, That's impossible. I measured it myself. In fact, there might not even be 36 pieces. Because it's a whole piece now, it's inevitable that there will be losses when it's divided. Perhaps there will only be 35 pieces in the end. Speaking of this, Ho Guanxi suddenly froze for a moment, and then said with joy, I understand. Brother Lin, you mean spiritual awareness grassroot. This is spiritual awareness grassroot. Yes, it's good that Brother Ho understands. Linny smiled and stood up. He cupped his fists and said, Then I'll go back first today. The final number of spirit tempering pills will definitely make Brother Ho satisfied. Brother Lin, wait a minute. Please tell me, what's the difference between spiritual awareness grassroot and spiritual awareness grass? Ho Guanxi stood up and asked excitedly. He and Lin were the same as before. They've both ignored the fact that spiritual awareness grassroot was better than spiritual awareness grass. So when calculating, they calculated according to the amount of spiritual awareness grass. This was indeed a huge loophole, and it was simply unimaginable for an elixir refiner. It's about a ratio of 1 to 2. In other words, these spiritual awareness grassroots of Brother Ho can theoretically refine 70 spirit tempering pills. Lin, he didn't mean to hide it, but he also didn't tell the truth. In theory, it could refine 70 pills, but in the Shinon cauldron, at least 80 pills could be refined. It was not convenient to tell Ho Guanxi about this. Ho Guanxi couldn't help but take a deep breath. Of course, he wanted all the spirit tempering pills, but he didn't let this get to his head. If he really did this, even if Lin didn't say anything, he would be embarrassed to face Lin in the future. Brother Lin, a mountain gazing stone is not worth so many spirit tempering pills. Listen to me, although the grade of the mountain gazing pill is higher than the spirit tempering pill, but in terms of value, a mountain gazing pill and a spirit tempering pill are almost the same. The mountain gazing stone I gave you is only 5 sets of materials. Not to mention that you have already given me a top-grade mountain gazing pill. Even if you didn't give it to me, at most 10 spirit tempering pills are enough to compensate for the mountain gazing stone. Ho Guanxi looked at Lin very seriously and said. He also stopped Lin from refuting. Pointing to the jade box in Lin Yi's hand, he said, if there are only 30 sets of materials here, and Brother Lin has about 50% success rate, I won't refuse all of them, but with Brother Lin's success rate, and so many sets of materials here, I absolutely can't accept it. Just to refine so many spirit tempering pills, the time required and the consumption of divine sense is extremely shocking. Brother, you can't be so ungrateful. Lin opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. Was he supposed to tell him that he didn't refine pills one by one, but 5 at a time? Also, others might not be able to refine 1 pill in a day or 2, but he could at least refine 8 or 10 batches a day. As for the consumption of divine sense, Lin was not worried at all. When he was at sea, he could casually catch a sea beast and use it to replenish his divine sense. At the same time, he could also get a sea beast Niden to refine pills. Brother Lin, I appreciate your kindness, but I only need 10 spirit tempering pills. I won't take any more. With 10 spirit tempering pills, I estimate that the strength of my divine sense should be able to greatly improve. As for the rest, you can keep them for your own use. This matter is settled. If you say anything more, then you don't consider me as a friend. Ho Guanxi didn't give Lin a chance to speak and directly finished his own words. Seeing that Lin seemed to want to say something, Ho Guanxi followed up and said, Brother Lin, do you know the restrictions of spirit tempering pills? Lin was slightly startled and shook his head. What are the restrictions of spirit tempering pills? I asked Brother Ho to enlighten me. I really haven't heard of it. In fact, I also accidentally saw it in the ancient books. Spirit tempering pills are not always effective. Otherwise, these spiritual awareness grassroots can be used to refine dozens of spirit tempering pills. Wouldn't it be able to enhance people's divine sense to an extremely terrifying level? Ho Guanxi pointed to the jade box containing the spiritual awareness grassroots and felt some regret in his heart. If there were no such restrictions, he might have thickened his face and asked for more spirit tempering pills. Not waiting for Lin Yi to ask, Ho Guanxi continued. The effect of spirit tempering pills on the tempering of divine sense is quite amazing. But unfortunately, in each big level, you can only take one spirit tempering pill. Eating more won't have any effect. Only when you enter the next big level can you take another spirit tempering pill, and the effect will get lower and lower. Chapter 58:17. After entering the gold core stage, a soul tempering pill may be able to improve from the early gold core stage to the middle gold core stage or even the peak of the middle gold core stage. But the effect is definitely weaker than that of the foundation establishment stage. In the future, you can only rely on your own cultivation, and so on. The Heavenly Tao realm and the Magnate realm are at most 8 soul tempering pills. I even asked for 2 more. There was one more thing that Ho Guanxi didn't say. That was, with his aptitude, his strength might not be able to enter the Magnate realm, and the strength of his divine sense would not exceed his own level. So in theory, having 4 soul tempering pills was enough. The rest of the soul tempering pills were mostly useless to him. Lin, he really didn't know that the soul tempering pill actually had such a limit. He had to send a letter to Tian Chan later. It didn't matter if it was a waste, but he was afraid that there would be any side effects if he ate too much. The next time Lin Yi refined the soul tempering pill, he would also try to take it continuously to see if it was really the case. However, he already believed that what Ho Guanxi said was not false, because the effect of using the divine sense grassroot to temper his divine sense was getting weaker and weaker. It was probably because the share of the soul tempering pill had been used up, and he could only continue to temper his divine sense at the next big level. After understanding that Ho Guanxi was not being polite, Lin Yi shrugged helplessly and said, "Well, since Brother Ho said that, then let's do it this way. When I refine the soul tempering pill, I will give a few to Brother Kai and Captain Okuda and say that it was from you." Haha, it's up to you. Anyway, it's yours. If you like to give it to others in my name, it has nothing to do with me, as long as I have my share. Ho Guanxi laughed again, and his mood was extremely good. Lin Yi was also happy. Thinking about it, it was a small matter anyway. He was too lazy to say more. Well, this time I will really take my leave. When the soul tempering pill is refined, I will send a few over first. Brother Ho can start to temper his divine sense. After he finished speaking, he cupped his fists and left with the J-box. Ho Guanxi quickly walked to the door and bid farewell to Lin Yi. The two of them were diagonally opposite each other, so there was no need to be so polite. Lin Yi didn't return to his room. Instead, he took out a piece of paper and wrote down the restrictions of the spirit-quenching pill on it. He asked the guards here to send it to Tiandan Pavilion and give it to Tian Chan, who on this warship didn't know Lin Yi, the honorary vice captain. The guard felt very honored to be able to do this for him. He even refused to accept the spirit jades that Lin Yi wanted to give him as thanks. He took the paper and directly ran out. After returning to his room, Lin Yi opened a restriction on the door and prepared to start refining the spirit-quenching pill. Along the way, he could refine a lot of spirit-quenching pills, but he had to give them away, auction them, and use them for himself. If he didn't refine more, it really wouldn't be enough. However, before Lin Yi could take out the Shinon cauldron, his expression suddenly turned cold. He turned his head and looked at the door. The restriction that had just taken effect had been forcibly destroyed. The various restrictions on the ancient warship were not set up by Okuda Dam later, but they were already there when the warship existed. That was why they could isolate Lin Yi's powerful divine sense. Otherwise, with the current level of divine sense of the Heaven Stage Island, there was no need for such restrictions at all. As for the defensive ability of these restrictions, to be honest, it was not strong. Any master of the mysterious ascending stage could easily break it with brute force. Of course, under normal circumstances, if someone came to find someone, they would just gently touch the restriction to remind the person inside that there was a guest visiting. Forcibly breaking the restriction almost made it clear that the enemy was attacking. Lin Yi's eyes narrowed slightly, and his powerful divine sense rushed out like a tide. Through the broken restriction, he could easily see a middle-aged man with a thin face and a hooked nose reaching out to push the door with a cold face. The next moment, the hooked-nosed man had already flashed in like a ghost. While closing the door, he did not even say a word and directly launched an attack on Lin Yi. A sharp blade-like chi split the air in the room and appeared in front of Lin Yi in an instant. If it was an ordinary master of the mysterious ascending stage, his head might have been directly cut off by this chi. Unfortunately, Lin Yi was not an ordinary person. Although this hooked-nosed man had the strength of the mysterious ascending great perfection, in the eyes of Lin Yi, he was really not a great person. When he was in the early stage of the mysterious ascending stage, he was able to fight against an opponent in the early stage of the mountain opening stage. Now that he was already at the peak of the late stage of the mysterious ascending stage, a mere mysterious ascending great perfection actually dared to come and attack him. Wasn't he just sending himself to death? There was no need for any profound martial arts. Lin Yi just stretched out his hand, and the invisible chi was imprisoned in front of him. Then his 5 fingers closed, and there was a slight sound of metal cracking. The metal attribute chi of the hooked-nosed man suddenly dissipated. Not even a speck of dust was blown away. Good boy, you have some skills. The hooked-nosed man's pupils shrank slightly, and he snorted in a low voice. Unfortunately, you are destined to fall today. Don't make any unnecessary resistance. I will give you a quick death. Before he finished his sentence, the aquiline-nosed man's body flashed, and countless sharp pure energy blades shot out, enveloping Lin Yi completely. If he didn't have a way to deal with it, he'd be riddled with holes in the next moment. Sword shower kill. The hooked-nosed man's mouth showed a smug smile. This was his strongest offensive martial arts, not to mention the mysterious ascending stage. Even if it was a master of the early mountain opening stage, if he was caught off guard and faced this move of his sword shower kill at such a close distance, it was very likely that he would suffer a big loss. The metal attribute chi was originally full of killing intent, and this move of sword shower kill brought this kind of killing intent into full play. He did not believe that Lin Yi could resist this killer move. If it was not for the fact that this was the ancient warship of Okuda Dam, and he had to finish the battle quickly so as not to alarm others, the hooked-nosed man would not have used his strongest offensive martial arts at the beginning. Since he had used it, it was naturally the result of killing in one blow. Lin Yi sneered. His current divine sense was so strong that when the hooked-nosed man used the sword shower kill, all the changes in strengths were actually already grasped by him. If it was a master of the mountain opening stage who used this move, perhaps Lin Yi would also have to temporarily avoid it. Mysterious ascending great circle? It was not enough. A low dragon roar sounded in the room, and the 5 elements of killing intent turned into a dragon shape, baring its fangs and claws to meet the wave of sword chi rain. After the sharp metal attribute chi met the 5 elements of killing intent, it suddenly converged all of its sharpness, like a tempered steel turning soft. All of it surrounded the dragon shape of the 5 elements of killing intent, and there was no longer any threat. Chapter 58:18. At this moment, the aquiline-nosed man's heart was filled with endless regret. He regretted that he did not find out who he was going to deal with before he came. His level was obviously lower than his, but this kind of strength was enough to crush him mercilessly. I can't retreat. If I retreat, I will die. The aquiline-nosed man was already a little scared, but he still said so to himself in his heart. He was extremely experienced in fighting. He knew that his momentum had been completely suppressed by Lin Yi. If he wanted to retreat and escape, it would only become a situation of 1,000 miles. The only way to survive was to face the difficulty. The aquiline-nosed man gritted his teeth and forcibly suppressed the trace of timidity in his heart. He put his hands together and stirred up all the chi in his body. At the same time, at the cost of burning his blood essence and reducing his lifespan, he gained more power in a short period of time. Then he desperately faced the 5-color dragon. All of this happened in an instant. Lin Yi also admired the decisiveness of the aquiline-nosed man. He was able to make the right choice in a flash. Not everyone could do that. Unfortunately, even if he burned his own blood essence, the strength he gained was still above the profound ascension great circle. At most, he could only be considered as half a step into the mountain opening stage. If he wanted to fight against Lin Yi's dragon-shaped 5 elements murderous aura, it was far from enough. There was no loud explosion, nor was there any surging chi. The aquiline-nosed man's desperate counterattack to save himself was like a small stone thrown into the sea. Without causing any waves, it was completely strangled and swallowed by the dragon-shaped 5 elements murderous aura. Then he could only watch in despair as the 5-color dragon rushed into his body, unscrupulously passing through his meridians and destroying them. He looked coldly at the aquiline-nosed man. The 5 elements murderous aura, combined with his powerful divine sense, exerted power beyond his imagination. Moreover, he could control it as if it was his own arm, without the slightest sense of sluggishness. The aquiline-nosed man did not die. He just fell to the ground and kept twitching. He did not intend to kill him now, at least not before he knew who sent him. "Tell me, who sent you?" He stepped forward slowly and looked down at the hook-nosed man as he asked indifferently. Under Lin Yi's control, the 5 elements murderous chi was slightly restrained so that the hook-nosed man wouldn't even have the ability to speak. The aquiline-nosed man's face was pale as he gasped for breath. His forehead was covered with beads of sweat. In such a short time, his clothes were drenched from the inside out. You don't have to ask. I'm afraid I'll scare you to death if I tell you. If you have the guts, kill your grandfather. Let's see who will die more miserably in the end. The hook-nosed man was tough and did not say the answer that He wanted to know. However, looking at his arrogant appearance, it seemed that he had a strong backing and was not afraid of He at all. He smiled faintly and said, "Turns out that you're so awesome. It was me who was disrespectful. In fact, it doesn't matter if you say it or not. I just asked you to give you a chance. Since you don't need it, then forget it. Anyway, with the soul-searching technique, I can know what I want to know." The hook-nosed man's expression suddenly changed. He knew how overbearing the soul-searching technique was. If He really used the soul-searching technique on him, even if he didn't die, he would most likely be crippled. In this case, it was better to simply die. What's worse was that even if he could commit suicide now, his primordial spirit could not escape the pain brought by the soul-searching technique. It could be said that Lin Yi's words had completely hit this guy's soft spot. He was not afraid of death, but he was really afraid of having his soul searched. In the past, when Lin Yi said that he would use the soul-searching technique on people, it was simply to scare people. But after a trip to the ancient small Jianghu, he learned the method of devouring primordial spirit. Soul-searching technique was just a piece of cake. Even if he had not learned it, he could easily deduce it. So this time, he really wasn't trying to scare the hook-nosed man. The hook-nosed man's expression kept changing. He didn't know if He was trying to scare him, but he didn't dare to try. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, "You can't use the soul-searching technique on me. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving the Middle Island. I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. I'm the Alchemy Hall's guest. You can kill me, but if you dare to use the soul-searching technique on me and cause some secrets of the Alchemy Hall to be leaked, don't mention you. Even Hogwanchi won't have a good ending." He frowned slightly. He could feel that the hook-nosed man wasn't lying. The identity of the Alchemy Hall's guest should be true. The consequences of using the soul-searching technique were most likely true. He didn't care, but he had to consider Tian-chan and Sydney in the Tiandan Pavilion, as well as Hogwanchi, Kai Zhongyang, the Will of Heaven, and others who were related to him. With the high status of the Alchemy Hall in the Middle Island, if He really used the soul-searching technique on a guest of the Alchemy Hall, even Okuda State wouldn't be able to protect him in the Tiandan Pavilion. Seeing Lin Yi's hesitation, the hook-nosed man finally let out a sigh of relief. If he knew this would be the result, he wouldn't have agreed to find trouble with even if he was beaten to death. But since it was already like this, as long as he didn't die, he would definitely find a way to get back at him. This time it's my fault. We can be considered to have no discord, no concord. Why don't we just forget about it? The hook-nosed man looked at Lin Yi carefully and asked, It would be great if he could use the name of the Alchemy Hall to scare Lin Yi and escape with his life. It wouldn't be too late to take revenge after planning. Of course, the hook-nosed man also felt that it was impossible to move Lin Yi with just a few words, so he reluctantly took out a small jade box from his arms and said with pain, "As long as you promise not to mention this matter, then this mountain gazing stone will be given to you as compensation." Mountain gazing stone? Lin, he was really a little surprised this time. Why was the mountain gazing stone so common? Could it be obtained so easily? If he knew that he could get the mountain gazing stone this way, he wouldn't have needed to exchange it with Ho Guanxi. However, thinking that this hook-nosed man was at the Mystic Ascension great perfection and was about to break through to the mountain opening stage, it was reasonable for him to collect the mountain gazing stone. He was a guest of the Alchemy Hall. As long as he had something, it was basically no problem to ask the people of the Alchemy Hall to refine elixirs. The problem was that there were not many people in the Alchemy Hall who could refine the mountain gazing pill, so he kept the mountain gazing stone and didn't use it. This time, the hook-nosed man was also distressed to exchange it for his life. However, he thought that after killing Lin Yi in the future, he could still get the thing back, so he calmed down. Chapter 58:19. Lin Yi closed the jade box and said with a faint smile, "This is my spoil of war, so I will accept it." The hook-nosed man's face suddenly turned ugly. Lin Yi was not going to let him go after taking his things. However, he could not say anything else because Lin Yi was right. His life was in the hands of others, so naturally, the things on him were not his own. Lin Yi was reminded by the hook-nosed man, so he simply used his divine sense to scan the guy's clothes to see if there were any other good things. Unfortunately, other than some spiritual jades, there was nothing else to rob. It should be that the hook-nosed man did not bring everything with him and only kept the most important mountain-gazing stone close to him. In the end, Lin Yi took advantage of it. With a mountain-gazing stone as a reward, Lin Yi was already quite satisfied. It did not matter if there was nothing else. With a wave of his hand, he used his spiritual chi to lift the hook-nosed man in the air and said coldly, "You said that you are a consecrator of the Pill Hall, so there must be a lot of people who know you, right? Since you dare to come and kill me, then let everyone see whether you are really that awesome and whether the Pill Hall will really stand up for you. What do you want?" The hook-nosed man could not care less about his mountain-gazing stone. After hearing Lin Yi's words, he had an extremely bad guess in his heart, and his expression immediately changed. Lin Yi smiled slightly and said, "You will know soon what I want to do." After saying that, Lin Yi directly carried the hook-nosed man out of the room. From the time this guy broke the restriction and broke into the room to launch a sneak attack until now, only a little more than a minute had passed. The alarm of the restriction being damaged had been sent to the control room of the ancient warship, and it was estimated that it had just been sent to Okuda Dam. As for the rooms on the side, whether it was Wei Shenjin's, Ho Guanxi's, or Kai Zhongyang's, because the restriction of their rooms had not been touched, they still did not know that such a thing had happened in Lin Yi's room. If the hook-nosed man's target was not Lin Yi, it was estimated that this guy would have already left the ancient warship. This kind of defense really made Lin Yi a little dissatisfied, so he had to find a chance to mention it to Okuda Dam. Of course, there was originally a guard here, but he was sent by Lin Yi to run errands. This guy could be considered lucky. Otherwise, if the hook-nosed man entered Lin Yi's room, he would have conveniently killed him. After walking out of the room, Lin Yi released his divine sense and touched all the restrictions on the ancient warship. Since he wanted to make a big scene, it would be too boring if there were too few people. Someone ambushed us in the VIP rooms of the ancient warship, and we've already caught him. If you're interested, you can come up to the deck and see if you know the assassin. Lin Yi used his pure chi to cover his voice, sending it to all the corridors. This time, he had made up his mind to kill the chicken to warn the monkey. So what if it was a priest from the Hall of Elixirs? Lin Yi wanted everyone in Central Island to know that the people of Tiandan Pavilion were not to be messed with. Even if it was a priest from the Hall of Elixirs, there was nothing much to say. As long as he didn't search the hook-nosed man's soul, Lin Yi was in the right. He didn't believe that the Hall of Elixirs would fall out with him because of this. If that really happened, then Lin Yi would be disappointed in his cheap master, Zhang Liju. Ho Guanqi was the first to come out. He had sent Lin Yi off not long ago, and was thinking about the spirit-tempering pill when he felt the restriction on the door being touched. He thought that Lin Yi had come back because of something, so he quickly opened the door and saw Lin Yi carrying the hook-nosed man towards the deck. Of course, what Lin Yi said made Ho Guanqi understand what was going on. The problem was that he really did know that hook-nosed man. Brother Lin, Ho Guanqi called twice and caught up to Lin Yi. He looked at the hook-nosed man in Lin Yi's hand in surprise. Pretty sure you went to Brother Lin's room and ambushed him? Lin Yi wasn't surprised that Ho Guanqi knew this hook-nosed man. He just confirmed what the guy had said, that he really was a priest from the Hall of Elixirs. Brother Ho, you know this guy? He's called Shijun, right? Lin Yi didn't stop and continued walking towards the deck. Ho Guanqi felt like he was in a difficult position. One was Lin Yi, whom he had tried his best to befriend, and the other was a priest from the Hall of Elixirs. It wasn't appropriate to help either side. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have come out. Brother Lin, how are you going to deal with priest? Sure. It couldn't be helped. Since he had already come out, Ho Guanqi could only force himself to ask. No matter what, he had to ensure that Lin Yi wouldn't get into more trouble first. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, "This priest sure wants to kill me, but I don't know him. I asked him who sent him, but he wasn't willing to say. Since that's the case, don't blame me for killing him as an example to others. I want everyone to know that the people of Tiandan Pavilion can't be easily bullied. If they dare to make a move on us, they should be prepared to be killed instead." Ho Guanqi couldn't help but secretly complain. Although Lin Yi's tone was light, the murderous intent in it could directly make people shiver. Although Lin Yi was the reasonable one, if he really killed Shijun, the rift between him and the Hall of Elixirs wouldn't be easily repaired. Shijun wanted Ho Guanqi to say a few good words for him, but it was a pity that Lin Yi's 5 elements murderous intent was still raging in his body. Under Lin Yi's intentional control, he couldn't speak at all. Brother Lin, I'm not trying to persuade you, but it's best if you think twice about this. This Shijun was sent by the Hall of Elixirs to protect Master Li Zhaoyi, but I heard that he's already on House Zhang's side. Ho Guanqi said bitterly. Being able to say this much was already the limit. If he continued, not only would there be a rift between Lin Yi and the Hall of Elixirs, there would also be a rift between him and Lin Yi. Kai Zhongyang and Wei Xinjin also quickly followed, but Ho Guanqi didn't expect them to say anything. One was a follower of Lin Yi, and although the other was Zhang Liju's disciple, he didn't have much connection with the Hall of Elixirs. If they wanted to help, they would definitely help Lin Yi. As expected, after knowing the situation, Kai Zhongyang didn't say anything beneficial to Shijun. Wei Xinjin even directly said that this kind of person should be killed on the spot. Chapter 58:20. Lin Yi casually threw Shijun on the ground, then said with a faint smile, "Brother Okuda, this matter can't be blamed on you. If you had the intention to sneak attack, you couldn't have defended either. If it were sailing on the sea, the ancient warship would naturally have a layer of shielding. If outsiders wanted aboard, they would immediately be aware. But now, it was anchored in the harbor, and there were still people boarding or leaving. It was impossible for Okuda Ba to completely block it. Hence, such a loophole appeared." Okuda Ba said with a smile, "Fortunately, Brother Lin, you're fine. Otherwise, even if I cut that bastard into 1,000 pieces, it won't be able to dispel the hatred in my heart." After saying that, Okuda Ba turned his attention to Shijun. The smile on his face also vanished. He swept a cold glance at Shijun and said, "You're considered bold, daring to come to my ship alone to kill my brother. This is not putting me in your eyes at all. Do you think that I, Okuda Ba, can be bullied by others after leaving the Okuda family?" Shijun's body trembled, and regret grew in his heart. He thought that he could kill Lin Yi in one blow, completely not giving Okuda Ba time to react. That was why he came. He didn't expect that the one killed in one blow was himself. Now that he was facing Okuda Ba directly, It would be a lie to say that he wasn't afraid. Although Okuda-ba did run away from the Okuda family, he never said that he severed ties with the Okuda family. After all, he was the Okuda family's third young master. To say that Nakajima didn't fear the Pill Hall's forces, the Okuda family was definitely one of them. He, a mere consecrator, really couldn't be compared to Okuda-ba. Brother Lin, do you know who this guy is? Okuda-ba also didn't know if he really didn't know Shurjun. He turned his head and asked Lenny. Lenny nodded and said, I heard that he's the Pill Hall's consecrator, Shurjun. Okuda-ba sneered and said, Pill Hall's consecrator, what a great background. Brother Lin, if it's not convenient for you to make a move, then let me take care of this guy for you. Elixir was a giant in Nakajima, after all. Even if Lin he was in the right, he'd still have to think twice before making a move. Okuda-ba, on the other hand, was different. Even if he didn't have the Okuda family behind him, just his own capital alone was enough for him to have nothing to fear from Elixir. Linny smiled and said, Thank you, Okuda bro. I'll take care of this myself. Linny said and smiled and said, Okuda-ba's Lin said, I will take care of this Jun-ba nod. Brother, Linny knew that this was probably just an expression of goodwill, but he was still very grateful. He smiled and cupped his fists in thanks. To be able to stand by his side so firmly in a situation like this, he was a friend worth having no matter what. In the time it took to say a few words, more and more people came to the deck. Among them were Zheng Dongjue, Li Zhaoyi, and other people from the Pill Hall. How dare you, Linny? How dare you kidnap our consecrator? How dare you? Zheng Dongjue took a step forward and pointed at Lin Yi with a furious expression, but he didn't dare to go any further. What if he got too close to Lin Yi and got smashed to the ground as well? Lin Yi looked at Zheng Dongjue coldly and said, Zheng Dongjue, you didn't send the Shurjun, did you? The consecrator of the Pill Hall can be used by the Vice Hall Master. Otherwise, why would you be so agitated? Zheng Dongjue glared and said, Nonsense. You're slandering me. How could our consecrator do something like this? It must be you who wanted to deal with consecrator Shur. That's why you framed him. Haha, you can always find a way to frame someone. Linny, I advise you to rein in before it's too late. Otherwise, the Pill Hall won't let you off. Ho Guanxi couldn't resist saying, Vice Hall Master Zheng, you don't know what happened. How can you be sure that it was Lin Yi who framed him? Furthermore, he and Consecrator Shur have no enmity in the past. They've never crossed paths before. Why is there a need to plot against Consecrator Shur? Ho Guanxi, you're a member of the Pill Hall and the Hall Master's nominal eldest disciple. Not only did you not contribute to the Pill Hall, you even defended the Pill Hall's enemy. Could it be that you and Lin Yi colluded with each other and deliberately targeted Consecrator Shur? Zheng Dongjue immediately dragged Ho Guanxi into the water with a cold smile. Didn't you say that Lin Yi and Shurjun didn't cross paths? Then you, Ho Guanxi, and Shurjun must have crossed paths, right? Ho Guanxi, this honest man, had never suffered such humiliation before. He was so angry that he couldn't speak. He couldn't refute anything. Lin Yi looked at Zheng Dongjue mockingly and said, Surname Zheng, I wasn't sure at first. Seeing you biting people like a mad dog, I'm relieved. You were the one who ordered Shurjun to assassinate me. There's no doubt about that. Don't talk to me about evidence. I don't need any evidence for what I'm sure of. Linny, who do you think you are? You want to use such a groundless excuse to deal with me? Zheng Dongjue? Hee. If you want to come at me, just come at me. What's the point of involving the unrelated consecrator Shur? I, Zheng Dongjue, won't be as despicable as you, using such a boring excuse to frame innocent people. Zheng Dongjue felt a little guilty in his heart, but he definitely wouldn't back down on the surface. Unfortunately, his words were no longer as strong as before. Li Zhaoyi frowned slightly and said faintly, Stop arguing. Is there any misunderstanding? Let's get to the bottom of the matter first. Linny glanced at Li Zhaoyi and said indifferently, Shurjun forcibly broke the restriction of my room, broke into my room, and tried to kill me. What misunderstanding can there be? The consecrator of the Pill Hall can be so lawless and kill people at will. Does he really think that Pill God Zhang isn't here, and Middle Island is under Zhang Dongjue's control? Zhang Dongjue's face was extremely ugly, but for some reason, he didn't refute. Li Zhaoyi looked at Lin Yi with a strange expression, nodded slightly, and stopped talking. Lin Yi was a little confused. This girl was really strange. She said something inexplicably and then stopped talking. Was this considered her responsibility as the chief alchemist of the Pill Hall? Li Zhaoyi didn't say anything anymore, and Zhang Dongjue stood up again, but this time he pointed his spear at Okuda Dam. Captain Okuda, Lin Yi is holding our Dan's master hostage on your ship. Don't you have anything to say? Isn't this looking down on our Pill Hall too much? Okuda Ba didn't even look up. He said coldly, "Who do you think you are? A person who helps Pill Gajong manage the Pill Hall dares to represent the entire Pill Hall? Whether or not Lin Yi held Shijun hostage wasn't up to you to decide, but whether or not Shijun broke the lock on my ship and killed my brothers, that was up to me to decide. Trying to act mighty on my ship. Humph, who gave you face?" Chapter 58:21. It couldn't be helped. Okuda Ba had a super family behind him. The entire Hall of Alchemy was at most on the same level as his family. Although Zhang Dongjue was a deputy hall master, he couldn't represent the entire Hall of Alchemy. Seeing this, Zhang Tianqing pointed at Okuda Ba and sneered, "Captain Okuda, are you trying to protect Lin Yi by talking about my uncle like that? Don't think that you're so great just because you have the Okuda family behind you. Although our Zhang family isn't as powerful as your Okuda family, but my ass, do you have a right to speak on my Okuda damn ship? Who do you think you are? How dare you point your finger at me? Do you want to die?" Okuda Ba slapped Zhang Tianqing's finger away. What the hell? Did he really think that he was a big shot? Okuda Ba didn't even put Zhang Dongjue in his eyes. The fact that he didn't slap this idiot to death was already considering that he was a businessman. You. Zhang Tianqing was furious. He was a genius from the East Continent. Especially in front of Li Zhaoyi, Okuda Ba taught him a lesson so mercilessly. He almost lost his temper. Unfortunately, the guards on the ship instantly surrounded him, causing Zhang Tianqing to completely calm down. On this ancient battleship, it was simply too unwise to challenge Okuda Dam. Zhang Tianqing could only swallow his anger and wait for an opportunity to take revenge in the future. Lin Yi waved his hand at Okuda Ba and said with a smile, "Brother Okuda, I told you to let me handle this myself. You don't have to care about these clowns. Since everyone is here, I won't waste any more of your time. Today, I, Lin Yi, will tell everyone here that whoever provokes me, no matter where he comes from, as long as he falls into my hands, there's only one ending, death." At the end, Lin Yi's tone was as cold as ice. His cold eyes scanned the entire place, and people like Shang Wani who had interacted with Lin Yi before felt their hearts skip a beat. They really didn't feel that Lin Yi had this kind of aura. Only now did they realize that he wasn't a simple person. Zhang Dongjue panicked. Shijun was indeed on his side in the dark, but he couldn't bring this out in the open. If a practitioner from the Pill Hall was killed just like that, no matter what, Zhang Liju would investigate it when he came back. Some things would naturally surface, and this was something that Zhang Dongjue couldn't allow. Lin Yi, do you really want to be the enemy of the Hall of Alchemy? If you dare kill Master Shi, you'll have to face the wrath of our Hall Master Zhang Liju. Are you sure you and your friends can handle it? Zhang Dongjue barked. No matter what, he couldn't let Lin Yi kill Shijun. For this, he even brought up Zhang Liju's name. It was sad to think about it. Zhang Dongjue wanted to take the Hall of Alchemy from Zhang Liju's hands, but he still needed Zhang Liju's reputation to control the situation. Even if he could get the Hall of Alchemy, would it be his Hall of Alchemy? Lin Yi laughed mockingly. Zhang Dongjue, can't you change your words? You keep saying the same thing over and over again. Without Alchemy Gajang's name, can't you live? Also, Okuda Bro already said it. Who do you think you are? You're just a steward who manages the Hall of Alchemy. Do you really think you're the master of the Hall of Alchemy? You're representing the Hall of Alchemy, representing Alchemy God Zhang. What a joke. Low snickers could be heard from the crowd, evidently thinking that Lin Yi's words made sense. Most of the people here were people with high statuses in Nakajima, and laughing was just laughing. No one was afraid of Zheng Dongjue, the vice head of the Hall of Alchemy. Li Zhaoi still had that weird expression on her face. She looked up at Zheng Dongjue, then turned to Lin Yi, but didn't say anything. Okuda-ba, are you going to care about this or not? Do you really think you can stay out of this when a master of alchemy was killed on your ship? Could it be that Lin Yi is your VIP, but our Hall of Alchemy isn't? Do you still want to do business in the seas of the 5 major islands? Zheng Dongjue turned his head and shouted at Okuda-ba. He was already a little flustered and didn't see Tong Wulsuo, who had followed him on the ship, winking at him. Okuda-ba frowned slightly. He could ignore the Hall of Alchemy and Zheng Dongjue, but he couldn't ignore his own reputation. Lin Yi was right in this matter, but if he didn't do anything, it wouldn't be justifiable, and it would be detrimental to the future construction of the fleet. However, in a flash, Okuda-ba made a decision, and that was to stand firmly on Lin Yi's side. Zheng Dongjue, I don't need you to tell me what happened on my ship. Shi Jun broke the restriction and attacked Lin Yi, so he should be killed on the spot after being captured. Don't tell me that they're all VIPs. If they were all VIPs like you, I really wouldn't dare to accept your business. Okuda-ba said indifferently. Zheng Dongjue was right about one thing. He was also a VIP on this ship, so Okuda-ba restrained his tone a little. Zheng Dongjue laughed and said, Okuda-ba, don't talk about these useless things. I'll tell you directly, if you continue to side with Lin Yi and disregard the lies of our Hall of Alchemy, I will immediately go to the Maritime Association to impeach you. Don't forget, our Hall of Alchemy is also a VIP member of the Maritime Association. I don't believe that no one can control you. Okuda-ba's face was as calm as water. If he wanted to make a name for himself in this sea, he had to accept the jurisdiction of the Maritime Association. Unless he didn't do legitimate business and became a pirate, he couldn't ignore this matter. Okuda-ba really didn't care about Zheng Dongjue. He also believed that the Hall of Alchemy wouldn't go all out to deal with him. However, with Zheng Dongjue's character, it was really possible that he would go to the Maritime Association to complain and impeach him, which put him in a very difficult position. Lin Yi also saw Okuda-ba's difficulty. Of course, he wouldn't let his friend fall into a dilemma, so he simply said, Brother Okuda, Shi Jun is actually not that important. After all, he's just a pawn. I will find the person behind him, so it doesn't matter if you don't kill him. Okuda-ba was obviously relieved. He also knew that Lin Yi was taking care of his face, so he said with a smile, Brother Lin, you are broad-minded. There's really no need to care about this scoundrel. Don't worry, after this trip, I will definitely help you get justice. Chapter 58:22. For a man who could dominate the sea, being soft-hearted was definitely not a virtue, but being ruthless. Zheng Dongjue's body trembled slightly, and he felt a little regretful. Not only did he not kill Lin Yi this time, but he also completely offended Okuda-ba. If he thought about it carefully, it was really a big loss. Fortunately, Lin Yi finally relented and did not continue to say that he must kill Shi Jun. In this round, Zheng Dongjue won, and Lin Yi was slapped in the face by his own words. This was the only consolation. Thank you, Brother Okuda. However, I have my own plans for this matter. You don't have to worry about it, Brother Okuda. Lin Yi smiled faintly, and then with the tip of his foot, he kicked Shi Jun. At the same time, he displayed the invisible and silent soul hook hand, and directly imprisoned Shi Jun, his primordial spirit, in the space of the jade pendant. Since he said that he wanted him dead, then he would definitely die, and his death would be even more miserable than before. Out of respect for my brother Okuda, I've already returned him to you. I won't hold the matter of the Stone Army's sneak attack against me for now. However, I'm warning you, if you provoke me again, no one will be able to save you. Lin Yi said coldly to Zheng Dongjue and the others, including Li Zhaoi. This girl was weird, and she always hung out with that idiot Zheng Tianqing. Of course, he did not have a good impression of her. Zheng Dongjue snorted. Although he saved Shijun, he did not feel proud of his victory. This time, he was reckless. He wanted to use Junto to get rid of Lin Yi, but he did not expect that Lin Yi was so strong that he could easily get rid of Jun. Tong Wulsuo, who was in the crowd, secretly shook his head. It was true that Zheng Dongjue was his master, but it was really hard to follow a master who liked to mess around. What did he do? He clearly said not to provoke Lin Yi, but in the next moment, he sent someone to assassinate him. It would have been fine if it had succeeded, but it just had to fail. However, Tong Wulsuo also knew that this sudden action was most likely because Zheng Tianqing had suffered a loss in the hands of Lin Yi, so he instigated Zheng Dongjue to make a move. He probably couldn't bring himself to do it. Tong Wulsuo could only comfort himself in this manner. At the very least, he managed to figure out some of Lin Yi's strength through this operation, so it was not as if he did not gain anything at all. Just as he was thinking about this, Zheng Dongjue suddenly roared, "Lin Yi, what did you do to Shijun? Why isn't there any movement from him?" His soul had been taken away by the soul-reaping hand, so it would be strange if he could still move. Although Shijun was still alive, he was no different from a corpse. He would completely rot away after a while. Lin Yi sneered in his heart and said calmly, "What did I do? Zheng Dongjue, are you looking for trouble? If you want to find trouble, just say it. I will take it all. Don't find such a poor excuse." Zheng Dongjue was suddenly speechless. He did not have any evidence to prove that Lin Yi had done something to Shijun, but even a fool would know that something had happened to Shijun. It was definitely Lin Yi's doing. However, unless there was evidence, it would be useless to say anything else. Lin Yi looked at Shijun and sneered. Does this guy have some hidden disease? Otherwise, he wouldn't have suddenly become like this, right? Zheng Dongjue, you saw it too. I didn't do anything to him, but he suddenly became a fool. Don't blame me. Zheng Dongjue glared at Lin Yi fiercely. He knew that he could not gain any advantage in a verbal argument, so he simply ignored Lin Yi and quickly gave Shijun a detailed examination. It was a pity that there was nothing wrong with Shijun's body except for some trivial injuries. The murderous aura of the 5 elements had been eliminated by Lin Yi, so there was no abnormality in his meridians. As the chief alchemist of the pill hall, Li Zhaoyi naturally knew about medicine. Zheng Dongjue couldn't find any problems, so she went forward to check. Hey, this situation seems to be a case of soullessness. Is it because he lost his soul? Li Zhaoyi said in a low voice, slightly surprised. Then she looked up at Lin Yi, hoping to see some clues from Lin Yi's face. Unfortunately, she did not get what she wanted. Master Li Zhao, can you find a way to treat Shijun? Zheng Dongjue looked at Li Zhaoyi with hope. He couldn't see any problem with Shijun at all, but Li Zhaoyi found it all at once. Of course, he pinned all his hopes on the chief alchemist of the pill hall. Li Zhaoyi stood up and shook her head slightly. This is not something that can be cured by any elixir. I don't have a way. Maybe you will wake up in a few days. If that doesn't work, Deputy Hall Master Zheng can bid for the Spirit Gathering branch in this auction and give it to High Official Sure. It might be able to help him regain consciousness. Lin Yi had been paying attention to the situation here. Naturally, he heard Li Zhaoyi's words. He had a whole new level of respect for this strange girl. Unfortunately, she didn't know the function of the soul-hooking hand. Shijun's soul was completely imprisoned by Lin Yi. Not to mention the God-gathering branch. Even a God-gathering tree would be useless. Thinking of this, Lin Yi couldn't help but shiver. If Han Jingjing's soul was also imprisoned by someone or some force, even if he obtained the God-gathering branch, would it be possible to wake Han Jingjing up? Okay, everyone, please leave. I will send more guards to guard the aisles of the distinguished guests. I will never let this kind of thing happen again. This is my guarantee. Everyone, please rest assured. Okuda Ba didn't know about Lin Yi's worries. On the surface, Shijun's attack had come to an end, so he began to evacuate the people on the deck. After a while, the sky would brighten, and the loading and unloading of the other 4 treasure ships would be almost completed. The fleet would soon be able to set sail. As long as they left the port and the ancient battleship raised the barrier, his control of the entire battleship would reach its peak. He wouldn't have to worry about any more tricks from Middle Island Pill Hall. After the people on the deck heard Okuda Ba's words, they began to disperse in twos and threes. However, before they left, the way they looked at Lin, he was completely different. Although Lin, he said he would kill Jun, he didn't really kill him in the end. However, anyone with a discerning eye could see that it didn't matter whether Jun was killed or not. Even if he was still alive, he was no different from a dead man. After Li Zhaoyi expressed her opinion, she didn't intend to speak again. Finally, she looked at Lin Yi and simply turned to leave. Chapter 58-23. However, Zheng Tianqing obviously didn't have any apologetic thoughts. He was also indifferent to Jun's current situation. In his heart, he was still blaming Jun, this idiot. He couldn't even kill an opponent weaker than him. He really deserved to die. Zheng Dongjue's face was gloomy as he signaled another guard of Dan Hall to carry Jun back to his room. Originally, he wanted to send Jun back to the shore, but after listening to Li Zhaoyi's words, he changed his mind. Since he needed the spirit-gathering branch to treat Jun, it was obviously more appropriate to take him to the northernmost island. After a while, Zheng Dongsheng, who was in the medicine sect, rushed over after receiving the notice and appeared in Zheng Dongjue's room. In the original plan, Zheng Dongsheng was to stay in Middle Island to deal with Tiandan Pavilion, while Zheng Dongjue took Zheng Tianqing and Tong Wulsui to the northernmost island to see if there was a chance to cut off the wings of Tiandan Pavilion. Who would have thought that one of his wings would be broken before the ship even set sail? A Xian Sheng at the great perfection was definitely a top figure in Middle Island. Dongjue, what the hell is going on? Didn't we agree not to provoke Lin Yi for the time being, but to start with the likes of Hou Guanqi, Kai Zhongyang, and Okuda Ba? Even if you want Jun to kill someone, it should be Hou Guanqi and Kai Zhongyang, right? Zheng Dongsheng asked with great dissatisfaction after sitting down. In addition to Zheng Dongsheng and Zheng Dongjue, there was only Zheng Tianqing. In order to find an opportunity, Tong Wulsui would not appear around them for the time being. Even if he met them, he would pretend not to know them. Zheng Dongjue snorted and didn't speak. He couldn't tell Zheng Dongsheng that it was all his son's fault in front of Zheng Tianqing. If it weren't for his nonsense, they wouldn't have lost a powerful man. Zheng Tianqing looked at Zheng Dongjue and stood up directly, saying, "Father, I asked my uncle to avenge me. Lin, he made me lose face in front of Li Zhaoyi. If I don't kill him, it will make my mind confused. It is likely to become my inner demon when I practice. If I want to continue to make progress, I must not let Lin Yi go." Zheng Dongsheng was speechless. It was his son's fault. What else could he say? This matter was related to Zheng Tianqing's cultivation, so it was no wonder that Zheng Dongjue would agree to let Jun deal with Lin Yi. Forget it. Let's not talk about this for now. Let's talk about Jun's situation. Is there any way to wake him up? After all, he is a master at the great perfection of profound ascension. It would be a pity to lose him like this. Zheng Dongsheng waved his hand and no longer mentioned the matter of dealing with Lin Yi. Instead, he turned to Jun. Zheng Dongjue shook his head and said, "Cousin, you have seen Jun just now. Li Zhaoyi is right. It is very much like a loss of soul. I can be sure that it was Lin Yi who did it, but I can't be sure how he did it. Maybe he was poisoned before? Can you see any signs of poisoning?" Zheng Dongsheng was also helpless. If he could see it, would he have waited until now to say it? Was this a slap to his face or what? Forget it. Let's go to the extreme North Island and buy the God-gathering branch first. Cousin, you don't have to go down, just come with us. Zheng Dongjue also realized that there was something wrong with his words, so he quickly waved his hand to stop the topic. Since no one could do anything, they could only do as Li Zhaoyi said. Anyway, the God-gathering branch was a good thing, and it would not be a loss to buy it and hold it in their hands. He let Zheng Dongsheng go with him because he felt that Zheng Tianqing was not very reliable. He seemed to be very talented, but this time he cheated him. It was better to let the kid's father go with him. Zheng Dongsheng did not object. He was not in a hurry to deal with Tiandan Pavilion. As long as he could cut off a few people on this ship, Tiandan Pavilion would be rootless duckweed, and there was nothing to worry about. At the same time, several people gathered in Lin Yi's room. Ho Guanqi, Kai Zhongyang, and Wei Xinjin were all there. Okuda Ba did not come because he had to arrange some affairs on the ship. Ho Guanqi said with a worried face, "Brother Lin, this time you are really a little impulsive. Zheng Dongjue, that villain, will definitely exaggerate this matter and say that you have offended the Dan Hall and did not give Master face. You may not know, but Master is a person who cares a lot about face. If he knows that you did not give him face, he will definitely be angry." Lin Yi couldn't help but say, "Brother Ho, it's not good for you to say that about your master, Pil Gajong, right?" Ho Guanqi was immediately amused, and the worry on his face lessened a lot. "I am worried for you. Can you be a little more serious?" Kai Zhongyang also laughed and said, "Eldest senior brother, you are worrying too much. Master is not a person who cares a lot about face. At the same time, he likes to be reasonable. Even if Zheng Dongjue will stir up trouble, don't tell me that we don't have mouths to speak. What is the truth? Master will naturally distinguish it. You don't have to be scared and worried here." Lin Yi thought to himself that his cheap master's character should be pretty good. There was really no need to worry too much about this matter. Of course, he was not worried in the first place. "All right, Brother Ho, Brother Kai said that Pil Gajong is a reasonable person. He definitely won't bother with me. What's more, you already know that Shi Jun is Zheng Dongjue's man. So Pil Gajong must have some understanding. So no matter how Zheng Dongjue tries to stir up trouble, it's useless," Lin Yi said with a relaxed smile, making Ho Guanqi feel a lot more relaxed. "That's right. Master is a reasonable person. When the time comes, Junior Brother Kai, and I will explain to Master. I believe that Zheng Dongjue's words won't be able to deceive Master." Ho Guanqi nodded, finally letting go of the worry in his heart. Wei Xinjin felt that he was very useless. He couldn't help at all. Lin Yi seemed to notice his thoughts, raised his hand, patted his shoulder, and said, "All right, I have nothing to do here. You go back and rest early. Pay attention to your safety. We'll talk about it after we set sail tomorrow." "Okay, boss." Wei Xinjin agreed. He thought that he couldn't help with anything else. He could only cultivate well. In the future, if someone wanted to cause trouble for boss, he would be the first to rush up and resist. Ho Guanqi and Kai Zhongyang also stood up and said, "Since that's the case, we will also take our leave. Brother Lin, rest well. We'll talk again after we set sail." Lin Yi didn't ask them to stay. He sent them out of the door, then closed the door and once again put up a restriction. The restriction destroyed by Shi Jun had been repaired. It was difficult to rearrange it, but the repair was still very simple. There were specialized people on the ancient warship to do this. Lin Yi inspected it. He was quite satisfied with the repair. Chapter 58-24. When Lin Yi took out the Shinong tripod and began to refine the soul-quenching pill, Yuhua was asking about Lin Yi. "Father, what's the background of that Lin Yi? Why does he seem to be so powerful?" Only Yuhua and Shang Wani were in the room, so she spoke casually. Shang Wani smiled and said, "This Lin Yi does have some strength. I heard that he is the newcomer king of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island, the leading figure among the new generation of disciples of the three pavilions in the North Island, and he is valued by Shanghai Tianhua. In the North Island, Lin Yi's reputation is so strong that he is almost as powerful as Ramjia, the strongest of the young generation. Although he has some conflicts with the people of the North Island branch of the Universal Chamber of Commerce, it can't cover up his talent. So, he is so famous in the North Island?" Shang Yuhua exclaimed in admiration. However, she did not pay too much attention to it. The North Island was the weakest of the 5 major islands. For a rookie king of the North Island to receive such praise from her was already pretty good. You're wrong if you think he is only famous in the North Island. He is also the son-in-law of the little princess of the West Island, Ning Shuifei. Shang Wani chuckled and continued. "You know about the marriage of the little princess of the West Island, right? The last lucky one is Lin Yi. In addition, I heard that he has also been to the South Island, and he went deep into the Spirit Beast area. I don't know the details, but he was able to leave the South Island safely, which shows his strength." "Is he so powerful?" Shan Yuhua gasped and was extremely surprised. It was not important to be the son-in-law of the West Island, but it was really amazing that he could go deep into the South Island and leave safely. That was the South Island, which was known as the Forbidden Area for human beings. More than that, last time the Zheng family targeted Lin Yi, saying that the elixirs of the Tiandan Pavilion were smuggled from the East State. The acting island owner Okuda suppressed this matter, but the Zheng family directly wrote a letter to the East State to complain, and in the end, they were scolded by the bigwigs of the East State. From this, it can be seen that Lin Yi is also a person of high status in the East State. Speaking of this, Shang Wani couldn't help admiring Lin Yi. Speaking of this, Lin Yi had actually traveled to all 5 islands, and he had powerful forces and helpers in the West Island, the North Island, and the Middle Island. Even the East Island, he was probably very popular. Maybe he also had some connections in the Spirit Beast clan of the South Island. Thinking about it carefully, it was really scary. The Zheng family actually wanted to go against such a guy. What on earth was it that they couldn't think it through? Shang Wani praised Lin Yi inwardly. He was already trying to remember if he'd done anything impolite to Lin Yi. Even if he couldn't work with someone like this, he should at least try his best to be on good terms with him. Who knew when he'd need Lin Yi's help? Shan Yuhua's beautiful big eyes were wide open, and she slightly opened her small mouth with a dull look on her face. After a long while, she exhaled and said, "It turns out that he is such a powerful person. No wonder he would help his younger brother to go on a blind date." Shan Yuhua knew a little about Wei Shunjin. After hearing Shang Wani's introduction of Lin Yi, she was sure that Wei Shunjin was at most Lin Yi's younger brother, a close brother or something like that. Wei Shunjin didn't seem to be qualified. Shang Wani looked at his daughter and suddenly asked, "Yuhua, you're not young anymore. Have you ever thought about your marriage?" Shang Yuhua's pretty face blushed, and she said coquettishly, "Father, why did you mention this? Do you want your daughter to get married early?" "Ha ha, men and women should get married when they're of age. That's why I brought this up." Shang Wani smiled and stroked the extremely well-trimmed beard on his chin. He looked at Shang Yuhua dotingly and said, "Of course I don't want my precious daughter to get married. But if you have a sweetheart and the old man still doesn't marry you, won't you be annoyed?" "Father, what nonsense are you talking about?" Shang Yuhua's pretty face became even redder. She snorted and said, "Your daughter doesn't have a sweetheart. An ordinary playboy can't even enter your daughter's eyes." Speaking up to here, Lin Yi's cold eyes and overbearing aura emerged in Shang Yuhua's mind. But she immediately shook her head and shook it off. Lin Yi was extremely outstanding, but because he was too outstanding, Shang Yuhua didn't have the slightest thought. Such a man was destined to not be a good match for her. Moreover, the girls around Lin Yi were better than her in terms of beauty and excellence. Shang Yuhua was a girl who knew her own limitations. Shang Wani nodded and said, "All right, since you don't have a sweetheart, then father will help you pay more attention. I'll see if there are any young heroes that are worthy of my family's Yuhua." "Humph, you still say that you don't want me to get married early. I'm ignoring you." Shang Yuhua stomped her feet and got up to leave. Shang Wani didn't stop her. It was late, and it was good to let her go back to rest. As for the idea of finding a rich husband for Shang Yuhua, he really didn't say it casually. It was just that he still needed to consider who to choose. When the sky was about to brighten, the fleet led by the Okuda Dam ancient warship completed all the preparations and began to slowly leave the port of Nakajima. They lined up in the direction of the northernmost island and gradually accelerated their departure. Lin Yi had already completed the refining of a furnace of quenching spirit pellet in his room. He was preparing for the second refining. The slight vibration of the hull let him know that they had set off, but it didn't affect him at all. He continued to do what he should do. After the incident with Shi Jun, it was estimated that no one would dare to forcibly enter his room again. To some extent, Shi Jun's arrival was also timely. Otherwise, without this warning, Lin Yi would suffer a great loss if he was disturbed when he was refining the pellet. The first day passed peacefully. When night fell, Lin Yi finished refining the pellet and prepared to take a rest. No matter how powerful his divine sense was, he couldn't keep refining pellets endlessly. After all, on this ancient warship, not everyone was a friend. There were also many enemies. Lin, he must have enough strength to deal with unexpected situations. Boss, you came out. As soon as Lin, he opened the door of the room, Wei Shenjin appeared in front of him, full of spirit. Could it be that this kid has been waiting at the door all along? What are you waiting here for? Lin, he asked curiously. If there was something, he should have touched the restriction at the door to let him know, right? Chapter 58-25. I see. It's quite a coincidence. Lin, he nodded indifferently and looked at Ho Guanxi and Kai Zhongyang's rooms. Both of them seemed to be in seclusion in their rooms, so he would not disturb them for the time being. Boss, do you want to go eat something together? Wei Shenjin suggested with a smile. Although he failed to get to know Shang Yuhua last time, failure was the mother of success. Maybe success would be born today. Okay, then let's go. Lin, he just needed to take a break, so it was good to go eat something. By the way, he could see if Shang Yuhua was there. If she was, he would continue to matchmake her and Wei Shenjin. This time, there were fewer people in the small VIP restaurant, and only about 40% of the seats were occupied. Lin Yi scanned with his divine sense and found that the main target, Shang Yuhua, was still with Shang Wani. Maybe this was a place to talk about new business, so Shang Wani would prefer to stay here. In this way, it would be much more convenient for Wei Shenjin to see Shang Yuhua in the future. He only needed to come here often. In addition to Shang Yuhua, Lin Yi also accidentally saw the strange girl, Li Zhaoyi. He thought that she would start to refine elixirs in seclusion after tasting the food yesterday. He did not expect that she would come to eat again. Ho Guanqi's information was not accurate. Of course, where there was Li Zhaoyi, there must be Zheng Tianqing. After being solemnly warned not to provoke Lin Yi again yesterday, this guy simply pretended not to see Lin Yi today and did not even raise his head. Seeing Lin Yi come in, the people in the restaurant took a deep look at him. What happened on the deck yesterday really impressed them. Several people took the initiative to say hello to Lin Yi, and Lin Yi also responded with a smile. Lin Yi took Wei Shenjin directly to the table of Shang Wani and his daughter and said very politely, "Vice President Shang, Miss Shang, what a coincidence to meet you again. Can we sit together today?" Shang Wani smiled warmly and said, "Of course, Master Lin. Young hero Wei, please sit down. We didn't have a good chat yesterday, and I was thinking when I could visit Master Lin. It's so nice to meet you." Really? What a coincidence. I also felt that I didn't have a good chat with Vice President Shang, so when I saw you here, I took the liberty to come over. Lin Yi said with a smile. Of course, everyone knew that this was complete nonsense. The only purpose of him and Wei Shenjin coming over was to let Wei Shenjin and Shang Yuhua have a chance to talk. Shang Wani and his daughter were also well aware of this, but no one pointed it out. As the vice president of the Universal Chamber of Commerce, Shang Wani's ability to communicate with people was certainly unquestionable. Since he had the intention of befriending Lin Yi, he obviously began to talk about the topics that Lin Yi was interested in. He could talk about anything under the sun, and the atmosphere quickly became harmonious. However, Wei Shenjin and Shang Yuhua still didn't have anything to say. Lin Yi really wanted to beat this fool. When he didn't see her, he wanted to find Shang Yuhua, but when he saw her, he didn't say a word and pretended to be mute. Isn't this a waste of time? By the way, Master Lin, I want to ask you a favor. Shang Wani saw Lin Yi chatting happily, so he conveniently made a request that he had been thinking about for a long time. Vice President Shang, you don't have to be so polite. Just say it. Lin Yi said politely. He had no choice but to be polite. His little brother was planning to marry Wei Shenjin's daughter. If he succeeded, Shang Wani would become an elder. Here's the thing. I want Master Lin to give us, the Universal Chamber of Commerce, the authorization. After we buy the elixirs of yellow level 6 and above from Tiannan Pavilion, we can resell them outside of Middle Island after we buy them from Tiannan Pavilion. Of course, we will share the profits with Tiannan Pavilion according to the rules. Shang Wani said, carefully, while constantly observing Lin Yi's expression. The proposal this time seemed to be no different from the last time, but in fact, there was a huge difference. The previous cooperation was equivalent to the exclusive agency of the Universal Chamber of Commerce for the sale of Tiandan Pavilion's elixirs outside of Middle Island. This time, it was only to buy the elixirs at the original price from Tiandan Pavilion and then get the authorization to resell them. If there were other chambers of commerce that wanted to do the same, Tiandan Pavilion could continue to authorize others. According to Shang Wani's estimation, this proposal was still very likely to get Lin Yi's approval. Especially under such circumstances, Lin Yi probably also wanted to be on good terms with him. Sure enough, after thinking for a while, Lin Yi nodded and said, "No problem. If it's just the authorization to resell Tiandan Pavilion's elixirs outside of Middle Island, I think it's okay. When we return to Middle Island, Vice President Shang can go to Tiandan Pavilion and have a good discussion." "Ha ha ha, that's great. Thank you, Master Lin. Come, let's have a toast. I hope we will have more and more cooperation in the future." Shang Wani laughed and raised his glass to toast Lin Yi. Lin Yi didn't decline and raised his glass in return. The two drank at the same time and suddenly felt a little closer to each other. After getting Lin Yi's approval, Shang Wani was in a good mood. Don't look down on the authorization to resell these elixirs outside of Middle Island. For example, a yellow level 7 Thunder Xian pill was basically priceless. If it was sold in Tiandan Pavilion for 70 to 80,000 spiritual jades, it was easy to sell it for 200 to 300,000 spiritual jades in auctions like North Island. The profit from this was really not low. With this good start, Shang Wani naturally valued Lin Yi more. The two talked and laughed, and for a moment, they were very close, like old friends reuniting. It was a pity that Shang Yuhua didn't have any special feelings for Wei Shenjin. A person who could be accepted as a follower by someone like Lin Yi shouldn't be too bad. It was a pity that she didn't have a good impression of Wei Shenjin from the beginning. After these two interactions, Wei Shenjin didn't show any frivolous behavior. Instead, he seemed very young and inexperienced. Shang Yuhua also learned about some of his previous failed marriages, but at most, she felt a little sympathy for Wei Shenjin. It wasn't to say that she was moved. While talking with Shang Wani, Lin Yi secretly paid attention to the change in Shang Yuhua's attitude toward Wei Shenjin. Although she didn't like him, at least she didn't hate him like yesterday, which was a big improvement. In any case, Shang Yuhua and Wei Shenjin were now acquainted. Whether they could have new developments in the future, Lin Yi couldn't care less. It was up to Wei Shenjin to pursue it himself, and others couldn't help much. At the other table, Li Zhaoyi let Zheng Tianqing flatter her, but she didn't respond at all. She ate her food slowly and elegantly, then got up and left. Not yet. To be continued. Chapter 58-26. The smile on Zheng Tianqing's face froze a little, and a trace of embarrassment and annoyance flashed across his face. However, he immediately stood up and wanted to catch up with Li Zhaoyi. However, when he saw Li Zhaoyi walking straight to Lin Yi, he was at a loss. His old man and second uncle had repeatedly warned him not to provoke Lin Yi, but Li Zhaoyi had been there. Should he follow her or not? Before he could figure out the answer to this question, Zheng Tianqing's body had already made a choice. He took a few quick steps and caught up with Li Zhaoyi. "Master Li Zhao, what are you doing here? Lin Yi is an enemy of our Dan Hall, and he is cruel and merciless. Be careful that he doesn't kill you." Zheng Tianqing leaned over to Li Zhaoyi and whispered to her. Unfortunately, Li Zhaoyi didn't want to pay attention to him at all. She moved a little to the side expressionlessly, meaning that she didn't like Zheng Tianqing getting too close. Zheng Tianqing was a little embarrassed, but he was used to this degree of disregard. It was not a big deal. Li Zhaoyi came to stand beside Lin Yi and said coldly, "Lin Yi, I have some questions to ask you. Come with me." Lin Yi looked up at her and said lightly, "I don't have time. Please go ahead." Zheng Tianqing thought that this was a rare opportunity. He immediately stood up and scolded angrily. "Lin Yi, don't be so shameless. You haven't even settled the debt of offending our Dan Hall. Now, Master Li Zao wants to ask you some questions, and you dare to make things difficult for him? What are you? Does the Dan Hall belong to you? Lin Yi's face was full of sarcasm, and then he said coldly, "Don't bother me, or you will know the consequences." Zheng Tianqing was shocked. Only then did he remember that Lin Yi's fierceness was not something he could contend with. Even Shi Jun, who was at the peak of profound ascension, was defeated. How could he, a guy at the early Yuanying stage, challenge Lin? Sure enough, the strategy of not provoking Lin Yi for the time being was correct. He should be obedient. Li Zao didn't pay attention to what Zheng Tianqing and Lin Yi were saying at all. She thought for a moment before continuing. Since you don't have time, I'll ask here. What caused Shi Jun's condition? What kind of pill could save him? Or do you have such a pill formula? I can use other pill formulas to exchange with you. Lin Yi waved his hand to interrupt Li Zao. This chick either didn't speak or she talked nonstop. Didn't she know that she and Lin Yi were enemies? Of course, Lin Yi did not regard her as an enemy. He just felt that this chick was a little strange. I said I'm not free, so I won't answer any of your questions. Also, Shi Jun has nothing to do with me anymore. Don't mention anything about him to me in the future. Lin Yi said unceremoniously. He didn't have any ill feelings towards Li Zao, but he also didn't have any good feelings towards her, so he didn't want to have any interaction with her. Li Zao wasn't angry. She just nodded and said, "Well, since you're not free, forget it. I heard that you're also a mystic first-level alchemist. If there's anything you don't understand in alchemy, you can ask me. I might find time to give you some pointers." After that, without waiting for Lin Yi to answer, she turned and left calmly, leaving Lin Yi looking at her back, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. This chick was really conceited. She knew that he was a mystic first-level alchemist, but she still dared to say that she would give him pointers. What level was her alchemy skills at? How old was she? Was there really such a genius alchemist? However, Lin Yi didn't care. His alchemy method was different from everyone else's. As long as Han Jingjing was there, he could constantly upgrade the automatic alchemy system. Alchemy was not difficult at all. After this little episode, Shang Wani didn't continue to chat with Lin Yi. Soon, he left with Shan Yuhua. Although Wei Shinjin was a little reluctant, he was already very satisfied with the current situation. Today, Shang Yuhua chatted with him in a very normal tone. It was really just 2 sentences. One of them was a greeting before leaving, but it was obviously many times better than yesterday's cynicism. For this point, Lin Yi said that he had nothing to say. If Wei Shinjin liked to giggle, then let him giggle. He hoped that Shang Yuhua would like his giggle one day. After sending Wei Shinjin back to his room, Lin Yi went to the deck alone. After a day of sailing, Middle Island had long disappeared without a trace. In his sight, except for the other 4 treasure ships, there was only the beautiful scenery of the sea and the sky under the faint night sky. Lin Yi's divine sense spread out, wanting to see if Languza was cruising nearby. However, he couldn't find any trace of Languza within the range of his divine sense. It seemed that this guy was having too much fun after entering the sea. Previously, Lin Yi was still worried that Languza's strength wasn't strong enough, but after thinking about it, the strength of his consciousness should be considered to be far stronger than the sea beasts on Sky Stage Island. Adding on the sea dragon's racial advantage, normal sea beasts of the mountain opening period probably wouldn't be his opponent. As long as he didn't go to the deep sea to look for those strong existences, he probably wouldn't be in any danger. Moreover, the ancient warship and the treasure ship were huge targets. He shouldn't have lost them. Brother Lin, did you come here to look at the scenery? Why didn't you come and have a drink with me? Okuda Ba walked over from the bridge and greeted him with a smile from afar. Lin Yi withdrew his divine sense from the sea, turned around, and said with a smile, "Brother Okuda, I was afraid of disturbing you, so I came here to enjoy the wind. Forget about drinking, I just ate." Okuda Ba walked over and pointed at Lin Yi. "Brat, why are you being so polite with me? Did you forget that you are still the honorary vice captain of this ancient battleship? You can do whatever you want on this ship. After saying that, Okudaba felt a bit regretful. He had actually forgotten that he had this identity. That sure June dared to sneak attack the honorary vice captain on the ship, so it wouldn't be too much to deal with him. If Zheng Dongjue brought up the Maritime Shipping Association again, Okudaba wouldn't be worried. The honorary vice captain position had been reported. With this identity, the Maritime Shipping Association absolutely wouldn't be biased towards the pill hall. Brother Okuda, don't tell me that you want me to do something. So you specifically reminded me that I am your honorary vice captain? He said with a laugh. He was just talking nonsense, but he didn't expect Okudaba to really agree. That's right. I didn't have this idea at first, but Brother Lin, you reminded me. Okudaba smiled like an old fox that had stolen a chicken. There is something that I really need your help with. Of course, if you don't have the time, you don't have to force yourself. Chapter 58-27. Okudaba was overjoyed. Of course you can help. Actually, this matter doesn't have to be done right now. I'm just telling you in advance. You've already heard about the Maritime Association. Anyone who makes a living in the seas, as long as they aren't pirates, will be under the jurisdiction of the Maritime Association. Every once in a while, the Maritime Association will have a competition for the distribution of the sea routes. This year's competition will start shortly after the auction. He suddenly said, I understand. Brother Okuda wants me to help you participate in the competition for the distribution of the sea routes. Let me say this first. I don't know much about this, so don't blame me if I can't help you. Brother Lin is too modest. You're the most talented maritime expert I've ever seen. If you can't help me, then no one can help me. Okudaba laughed and said. Lin Yi's first performance was still fresh in his memory. Not to mention the matter of the lookout, controlling the starfall array to repel the sea dragon was amazing. Just thinking about it made him excited for a long time. Only Lin knew that it wasn't him who did it. If it wasn't for the ghost's help, he wouldn't have known about the starfall array. Thinking about the ghost, Lin realized that he hadn't paid attention to whether the ghost had woken up or not after returning to the Heavenly Island. He hurriedly contacted in his mind, Senior Azure Dragon. Are you awake? What do you think? You stinking brat. Are you hoping that I won't wake up? The ghost said lazily, but the strong resentment in its words made Lin blush with shame. It seemed like Jiao Yazi had used a similar tone last time, right? Old people need people to take the initiative to care for them. Brother Okuda, let's talk about this matter first. When the competition for the sea route starts, I'll go with you. I won't be accompanying you for now. I just thought of an alchemy problem. I need to go back and test it. Lin didn't have time to talk to Okudaba. He hurriedly said goodbye and ran back to his room. Lin hadn't expected it before, but now that the ghost had woken up, of course, he had to have a good chat with it. After all, it was his mentor and helpful friend who could provide him with many useful suggestions. Okuda smiled and waved at Lin. He didn't mind Lin being in a hurry. After all, he had already gotten the results he wanted. Other details weren't important. After Lin returned to his room and sat down, he said solemnly, Senior Azure Dragon, I haven't been able to contact you for a long time after I went to the secular world. I didn't think of you after I came back. I'm really sorry. It doesn't matter. You don't need me now anyway. The ghostly thing snorted. Obviously, it didn't really matter. Lin secretly laughed. Sure enough, this ghost was similar to Jiao Yazi. Unfortunately, Jiao Yazi couldn't appear on Heaven Stage Island. If you didn't find it, why are you talking to me? The ghost said very discontentedly. The purple mist lotus was a good thing, but if you didn't get it, it was still a fake. Senior, this time, there's a piece of soul cultivation wood being auctioned in the extreme North Island. I'm going to buy it for you to nourish your soul. This thing is useful to you, right? Lin patted his forehead and once again used the great method of changing the topic. In fact, when he heard about the soul cultivation wood, the first thing he thought of was the ghost, but he didn't contact him. He was really a little dumbfounded. Of course it's useful. At least you still have a conscience. I also know that you lost your soul because of that little girl Han Jingjing, so I'm a magnanimous adult and won't argue with you. The ghost said it generously, But Lin, he thought about its tone at the beginning. It didn't sound like a magnanimous adult. However, listening to its words, Linny knew that it already knew that he wanted to buy the soul cultivation wood. This ghost was really cunning. It obviously woke up, but it didn't take the initiative to talk to him. It had the same character as Jiao Yazi. Chapter 58-28. Knowing that Lin Yi really cared about Han Jingjing, the ghost thing also became serious and solemnly said, "In my experience, Han Jingjing's soul is probably trapped in a certain place, but should not be in the secular world. Perhaps it is in some kind of space channel between the heaven stage island and the secular world. In this case, if you want to use the spirit gathering branch to retrieve her soul, it should be a good idea, but whether it can work or not depends on her own ability." Lin, he rubbed his forehead in distress. The ghost thing couldn't give an accurate opinion, but at least he had a guess. In any case, with the ghost thing beside him, he felt that it would be easier to find Han Jingjing's soul. "By the way, the spirit tempering pill you refined is good. I'll take a few myself. It can help me recover faster." The ghost thing wouldn't be polite to Lin Yi. Before, Lin Yi didn't think of it. It didn't say anything, but now it didn't matter. It just said hello to Lin Yi, and the rest was not something Lin Yi needed to worry about. "If you need it, just take it yourself. There's no need to be polite with me." Lin Yi said indifferently. The number of spirit tempering pills was enough to use. In the case of limited use, he really couldn't use a few. It was estimated that the ghost thing was the same. But if the spirit tempering pill was effective for the ghost thing, then the spiritual knowledge fruit should also have an effect, right? Why didn't the ghost thing mention it? "Senior, I still have spiritual knowledge fruit here. It's also useful for your soul, right? If you need it, just take it." The ghost thing snorted and said, "You brat, you are really wasting God's gifts. The spiritual knowledge fruit is good to use directly, but if it can be refined into a pill, the effect will be better. Of course, I know that the spiritual knowledge fruit is useful to me, but this thing is the same as the spirit tempering pill. It can only be used once in a big level, and the more you use it, the worse the effect. I don't want to waste this treasure. Let's wait until you refine the pill." The spiritual knowledge fruit can also be refined into a pill? Lin Yi really wanted to cry, but had no tears. It was terrible to be uneducated. It was no wonder that even after eating so many spiritual knowledge fruits, his spiritual knowledge did not jump by a few levels. Although most of them were used to refine the tumors on his spiritual knowledge, many of the medicinal efficacies were directly absorbed. Therefore, it was very important to have an experienced ghost by his side. Those precious experiences were definitely not something that could be obtained easily. "Senior, do you have the pill recipe for the spiritual knowledge fruit?" If there was a pill formula, Lin could immediately start trying to refine pills. He was currently at the peak of the late stage of profound ascension, and if everything went well, he might be able to break through to the profound ascension great circle. Unfortunately, the ghost simply shook his head and said, "No, but I can tell you that the pill used to refine the spiritual knowledge fruit is called divine accumulation pill, which is a higher level than the spirit tempering pill. The difficulty of refining it is probably between the profound rank 1 and profound rank 2. With your Shinnon cauldron, there is no difficulty in refining it, as long as you can find the pill formula." Lin Yi could not help but smile bitterly. The most difficult thing for him to refine pills was to obtain the pill formula. Now everything was ready, but this matter could not be rushed. Later, he would ask Ho Guanxi and Kai Zhongyang to see if there was any news of the divine accumulation pill. "Okay, I won't talk nonsense with you. You don't have to come to me if there's nothing important. I'll take a few of your spirit tempering pills and go into closed-door cultivation," the ghost said with a smile. Lin Yi's current strength was enough to protect himself, so he was not worried about any sudden incidents. Lin Yi was also speechless. "I don't have to come to you if there's nothing important?" Then who was the one who had a bitter face and blamed him for not looking for him earlier? After ending the chat with the ghost, Lin Yi had nothing else to do. He could only continue to refine pills. Before going to the extreme North Island, he needed to refine more pills. Another day passed. Lin Yi put away the Shinnon cauldron and was ready to give the agreed spirit-tempering pill to Hogwanshi so that he could begin to temper his spiritual sense. The effect of taking it for the first time was the best. Moreover, the strength of Hogwanshi's spiritual sense was still very low. It was estimated that the first time could have a qualitative leap. When he went out today, he did not see Wei Shinjin waiting for him. When he swept with his spiritual sense, he found that this kid was already in the restaurant. There is no doubt that Shang Yuhua was also eating in the restaurant, but he did not sit with the Shang father and daughter. Without Lin Yi by his side, Wei Shinjin did not have the courage to take the initiative to talk to Shang Yuhua. Lin Yi smiled bitterly and shook his head. He had already helped Wei Shinjin to the limit. Whether he could succeed or not depended on himself in the future, so he did not plan to go to the restaurant. Looking up at Hogwanshi's room, there was a restriction, but there was no do not disturb sign, so Lin Yi directly went over and touched the restriction. Soon Hogwanshi came over and opened the door. After seeing Lin Yi, he suddenly showed a smile on his face. "Brother Lin, how come you have time to come over today? Come in, junior brother Kai is here too. Let's have a chat." "Thank you, Brother Ho. It's good that Brother Kai is here too. It saves me from having to make another trip." Lin Yi smiled and cupped his fists, then slowly walked into the room. Kai Zhongyang also came out, and when he saw Lin Yi, he was very enthusiastic and cupped his fists. "Brother Lin, is there something you need from me? If there's anything, just say it." "Brother Kai." Lin Yi smiled and greeted him, then walked inside and sat down. After Hogwanshi poured a cup of spirit tea for him, he said, "Today, I came over because the pill that Brother Ho asked me to refine has been completed, so I specially came to deliver it to Brother Ho." "It's done so quickly?" Hogwanshi said with some surprise. Although he knew that Lin Yi's alchemy speed was very fast, he didn't expect it to be this fast. After all, he needed 10 soul-tempering pills, and listening to Lin Yi's words, he wanted to give a few to Kai Zhongyang. This was really not a joke. An ordinary alchemist could refine 2 pills in 2 days. Lin Yi smiled slightly, took out 2 jade bottles that he had prepared, one big and one small, handed the big one to Hogwanshi and the small one to Kai Zhongyang. Kai Zhongyang didn't care, took the jade bottle with a smile and said, "I also have one? Thank you, Brother Lin. Let me see what pill it is." "It's a soul-tempering pill," Lin Yi said carelessly. In the small jade bottle, he put 2 soul-tempering pills. Originally, he also wanted to give some to Kai Zhongyang, but if a large number of soul-tempering pills flowed out, it wouldn't be good for him. For the time being, 2 was enough for Kai Zhongyang. If he needed it in the future, it wouldn't be too late to give it to him. Kai Zhongyang's hand trembled, and the jade bottle almost flew out of his hand. It was obvious that he had heard of the name of the soul-tempering pill. After grabbing the jade bottle in a flurry, he held it tightly in his hand, not daring to let go easily. Chapter 58-29. The Best Quality Soul-Tempering Pill. Kai Zhongyang didn't have time to thank Hogwanshi for the time being. He opened the lid of the jade bottle and immediately closed it again. He looked at Lin Yi in shock and said, "Brother Lin, you are really amazing. You can actually refine the best quality soul-tempering pill. With these 2 soul-tempering pills, my divine sense will have earth-shaking changes." Then he remembered Lin Yi's words and turned to Hogwanshi and said, "Big brother, I owe you this time. These 2 soul-tempering pills are too precious. It's a pity that the good things this time are all auction items of 5 Elements commerce. Otherwise, I would have exchanged some things with you. If you need anything in the future, just tell me. I will try my best to help you find it." Hogwanshi was mentally prepared in advance, but he was still very excited. He didn't open the jade bottle and directly put it away. He cupped his fists and said to Lin, "Thank you, Brother Lin." After that, he said to Kai Zhongyang, "Junior Brother Kai, don't listen to Brother Lin's nonsense. What I got is my share. What you got is Brother Lin's own. If you want to thank someone, thank Brother Lin properly." "Are you 2 kidding me?" Kai Zhongyang laughed and immediately bowed to the 2 of them. "In any case, I, Kai Zhongyang, have benefited from both of you. We are all brothers. There is no need to say unnecessary words. Everything is in my heart. Lin Yi smiled and nodded. That's right. We are all brothers. Being too polite will make us seem distant. Yes, yes, junior brother Kai can see things clearly. I was too impulsive. Ho Guanqi laughed heartily as well. The already harmonious relationship between the three became even more intimate in an instant. After that, the topic revolved around elixir refinement. Ho Guanqi and Kai Zhongyang both thought that Lin Yi was a mystic first-level or even second-level elixir refiner. So they humbly asked Lin Yi questions about elixir refinement. Fortunately, Lin Yi had Zhang Liju's elixir refiner's notes. These two's elixir refinement came from the same lineage. All the questions were basically covered in the notes. Lin Yi was able to answer them easily. After this conversation, Ho Guanqi and Kai Zhongyang admired Lin Yi more and more. This feeling was like receiving Zhang Liju's personal guidance. Many questions were answered easily. Although they hadn't tried it yet, they could tell that their elixir refinement had improved significantly. Brother Lin, listening to a wise man's words is better than studying for 10 years. Looks like we'll have to consult you more in the future. I hope you don't mind us bothering you, Ho Guanqi said emotionally. Now, he was even more glad that he was able to be friends with Lin Yi. With Lin Yi's age and understanding of elixir refinement, in a few more years, he might become another elixir god. Lin Yi sweated in his heart. His theoretical knowledge was quite rich, but it was all from Zhang Liju's elixir refinement notes. He had never tried it before. If it wasn't for Han Jingjing's automatic elixir refinement device, he might not be able to make a single elixir in his lifetime. It was just that these two didn't know about this. After Ho Guanqi finished, Kai Zhongyang added, Brother Lin is definitely a good teacher to us. If you have time, why don't you take some time to give us some pointers? We'll be able to improve as well. You two are too humble. We're all discussing and improving together. What's there to ask for pointers? I won't dare talk to you guys anymore. Lin Yi smiled and waved his hand, speaking half truth and half false. If it weren't for Zhang Liju's notes, he wouldn't have dared to talk to these two refiners like this. Wouldn't that be exposing his own weakness? They had been chatting for about half an hour, and Lin Yi felt that it was about time to go back and continue his elixir refinement. However, at that moment, a rapid bell rang in the ancient warship, echoing through all the corridors. Even in the locked rooms, there was a faint bell ringing. This level of sound was specially set up by the ancient warship. It wouldn't affect the training of the people in the rooms, but it would attract a certain amount of attention. It was pretty much the same as triggering the lock at the door. Ho Guanqi frowned. What's going on? Is there some danger? Lin Yi smiled and waved his hand. Don't worry, Brother Ho. This kind of bell isn't a danger signal. It means that there's someone on the ship who needs help. I've been a lookout on this ship before, so I'm very familiar with all kinds of signals. Kai Zhongyang breathed out in relief. As long as there's no danger, that's good. If there's someone who dares to attack this ship, they're definitely very strong. No matter what, there'll be huge casualties. I don't want that to happen. An ancient warship and 4 large treasure ships indeed wasn't something that just anyone would dare to attack. Even if there was a beast wave like the last time, they'd be able to deal with it easily. If there really was someone who dared to attack, they'd definitely have enough confidence. Ho Guanqi smiled. You're worrying too much, Brother Kai. Normal people wouldn't dare to attack Captain Okuda's ship. Brother Lin, should we go see who needs help? Lin Yi shrugged. Go, Brother Ho. I won't be going. There's a lot of people on this warship. I don't think I'll be needed. Just now, when I was talking with my 2 brothers about alchemy, I had a lot of enlightenment, so I like to go back and sort it out. If there's anything you need, Brother Ho can inform me at any time. There weren't many people on this ship that Lin Yi cared about, and 2 of them were right in front of him, so he wasn't really interested in the person who needed help. Those who knew him all knew that if someone needed his help, they'd just go straight to him. If he heard the bell, he'd go take a look. Lin Yi didn't have that much free time. Ho Guanqi nodded. Let's go take a look. If there's anything Brother Lin can do, can you help as much as you can? Kai Zhongyang reached out and hooked his arm around Ho Guanqi's shoulder. Eldest senior brother, you're really long-winded. Don't you know what kind of person Brother Lin is? Why are you saying such nonsense? Let's go, I'll go with you. If there's nothing important, I'll go back and study alchemy. Lin didn't mind and smiled. "Don't worry, Brother Ho. If there's anything you need, I'll definitely help." As the three of them spoke, they had already left the room. Lin released his divine sense and saw that some people had already gathered on the deck. It seemed like there were quite a lot of warm-hearted people. In the world of cultivators, such a situation was rare. However, what surprised Lin was that the person who needed help was someone he knew, and their relationship was quite good. It was the vice president of the Universal Chamber of Commerce, Shang Wani. To be continued. Chapter 58:30. Ning Chung did not know what was going on with Shang Wani. Half of his body was red while the other half was pale. His whole body was twitching slightly. Moreover, he had already lost consciousness. The situation seemed to be somewhat serious. Since something had happened to Shang Wani, Lin also wanted to go and take a look. After all, he was someone that he knew. Even if he could not help, he should at least show some concern. However, he found that Wei Xinjin, this kid, had already run up to the deck and was currently at the side of Shang Yuhua, asking about Shang Wani's situation in a low voice, causing him to hesitate for a moment whether he should go over or not. Because if Lin went over, then Wei Xinjin would definitely stand by his side. It was a rare opportunity to show off. As such, Lin did not want to casually ruin it. Quietly using his spiritual consciousness to check on Shang Wani's situation, Lin basically understood what was going on. Shang Wani should have encountered some problems during his cultivation, leading to his current state of cultivation deviation. Although this state was very dangerous, but in a short period of time, there would not be any new changes. Lin would not be able to help. As such, he went back to his room. "Senior, are you in seclusion?" After returning to his room, Lin wanted to look for that ghostly thing to ask about Shang Wani's situation, whether or not it had any countermeasures. But that ghostly thing seemed to have really gone into seclusion. There was no response to his contact. Lin shook his head. He could only think of a way to solve Shang Wani's predicament by himself. If it was just an injury caused by cultivation deviation, then Lin Yi's all-purpose qi would be able to heal it. But the current situation was not so simple to solve. As such, he had to continue to think of other ways. As for the situation on the deck, Lin was still paying close attention to it with his spiritual sense. Maybe someone else could find a way to help Shang Wani. Even if they couldn't succeed, they could at least provide some ideas. In the past 2 days, Wei Xinjin had gotten to know Yuhua Shang, so he had gotten an answer from Yuhua after asking questions. Now that almost everyone had arrived, he stood up and cupped his fists. "Dear friends, I'm Wei Xinjin. This is Vice President Shang of the Universal Chamber of Commerce. I think everyone knows each other. Because Vice President Shang was not careful in her cultivation, an accident occurred. Is there anyone here who has medical skills and can help treat Vice President Shang? I'll definitely reward you handsomely after this." Shang Yuhua looked at Wei Xinjin in surprise. Was this the same Wei Xinjin that she thought was a little dull? Why did he speak like a completely different person? Originally, these words should have been said by Shang Yuhua, but she was a little confused. After simply saying it to Wei Xinjin, she focused on Shang Wani's condition and forgot her original intention. Fortunately, Wei Xinjin helped her to say it, otherwise, the bell would just find a bunch of people to watch the fun. In the world of cultivators, under normal circumstances, no one would take the initiative to help without asking, unless the other party was alone and didn't even have the ability to ask. Now Shang Wani obviously had a family by his side. If Shang Yuhua didn't say it, even if others could help, they couldn't help, lest it cause some unnecessary misunderstandings. After Wei Xinjin finished speaking, the first one to come out was Zheng Dongsheng. It was unknown whether he was really enthusiastic or had other ulterior motives. This old man is Zheng Dongsheng from the medicine sect, a senior alchemist. I'm extremely proficient in medicinal properties and also dabbled in medical skills. Let this old man diagnose Vice President Shang's condition. Zheng Dongsheng walked over and said proudly, but these words were said to Shang Yuhua. As for Wei Xinjin, he simply didn't want to pay attention to him. Zheng Dongsheng had no interest in paying attention to Lin Yi's little brother. In fact, if it wasn't for Shang Wani lying on the ground, he wouldn't have taken the initiative to help. Shan Yuhua hurriedly bowed and said, Grandmaster Zheng's medical skills are naturally trustworthy. I ask Grandmaster Zheng to treat my father immediately. As for the consultation fee, please feel free to ask Grandmaster Zheng. As long as my father can be saved, this junior is willing to pay any price. Zheng Dongxing nodded with satisfaction and said, Miss Shang's filial piety is truly touching. Vice President Shang will definitely be safe and sound. After a few polite words, Zheng Dongshang half-squatted and began to examine Shangwani. After a short while, he stood up with a dignified face and said, Vice President Shang indeed suffered from Qigong deviation during cultivation. Moreover, his situation is very special. It's not looking good. Shan Yuhua hurriedly said, Grandmaster Zheng, please think of a way to save my father. If there's anything you need, please don't hesitate to tell me. This junior will do her best to collect it. Zheng Dongsheng slowly nodded and said, If this old man isn't wrong, Vice President Shang should have fire and water dual spiritual roots, right? Shan Yuhua hurriedly replied, That's right, my father does have fire and water dual spiritual roots, but there has never been any problem during cultivation. Fire and water dual spiritual roots are very rare. These are two completely opposite and conflicting spiritual roots. During cultivation, water and fire are incompatible, and a little carelessness can lead to Qigong deviation. Vice President Shang is really lucky that nothing has happened to him for so long. Of course, it could also be that Vice President Shang's mental cultivation method is extremely advanced and can transform the incompatible water and fire into complementary water and fire. In this way, the cultivation speed will be doubled, but it doesn't mean that there will be no Qigong deviation. This time, there should be a problem. Zheng Dongsheng stroked the beard on his chin and spoke frankly with the demeanor of a grandmaster, frightening the people around him. Shan Yuhua was anxious. These things weren't important. The most important thing was how to save her father. What was this Zheng Dongsheng talking nonsense for? However, she still hoped that Zheng Dongsheng would help, so she didn't dare to complain. When Zheng Dongsheng finally finished speaking, Shan Yuhua hurriedly asked respectfully, Grandmaster Zheng, may I ask how to save my father? Vice President Shang's situation is very bad. Ordinary means are no longer of any use. Zheng Dongsheng said, while shaking his head. When Shan Yuhua's face showed more and more anxiety, he continued, For now, I'm afraid the only way to save Vice President Shang is to refine a yin and yang pill to harmonize yin and yang and communicate with water and fire. Moreover, this yin and yang pill must be given to him within 24 hours. Otherwise, even God can't save him. Shan Yuhua's complexion suddenly turned pale. She was the daughter of the All-Connection Chamber of Commerce's vice president. She was usually very knowledgeable, but she had never heard of a medicinal pill like the yin and yang pill. It was obviously a relatively obscure existence. Looking at Zheng Dongxing's manner of speaking, it was probably not something that could be easily refined. Although the fact that he had the yang pole grass wasn't a secret, not many people knew about it. How did this old man know so much about it? Shan Yuhua was overjoyed. What she was most afraid of was that the boat didn't have the Yangji grass. With their current position, they wouldn't be able to reach the shore within 24 hours. Even if they could buy it on the shore, it wouldn't be able to save Shang Wani's life. Since someone here had it, the only question was how much it would cost to buy it. Master Zheng, please tell me, who has the Yangji grass? Shan Yuhua held back her surprise and asked Zheng Dongsheng urgently. Zheng Dongsheng pointed at Kai Zhongyang and said with certainty, 5 Elements Commerce's Kai Zhongyang definitely has the Yangji grass. As for how much, I'm not sure. With these words, it was easy to think that Kai Zhongyang had more than 1 Yangji grass. At least, that was what Shan Yuhua thought. Therefore, She was even more confident that she could trade for the Yangji grass. President Kai, if you really have the Yangji grass, please sell it to me. Just name the price. Shan Yuhua, will not bargain. Shan Yuhua quickly walked in front of Kai Zhongyang and bowed solemnly. Although the two chambers of commerce were competitors, there wasn't any deep hatred between them. Shan Yuhua didn't think that Kai Zhongyang would leave her in the lurch. After all, they were doing business. If someone wanted to buy it, wouldn't he take the opportunity to sell it for a good price? Chapter 58:32. Lin Yi, who was in the room, was a little surprised. He didn't think that Kai Zhongyang would be dragged into this. Furthermore, he didn't say that he had the Yang pole grass right away, so there must be a reason why he didn't help Shang Wani. Because of this, he had a strange feeling in his heart. On the deck, facing Shang Yuhua's eager eyes, Kai Zhongyang could only smile bitterly and say, "Miss Shang, I do have a Yang pole grass. It's not that I don't want to sell it to you, but this Yang pole grass is reserved by someone else. It's not for auction. If I give it to you, you know what the consequences will be." Shang Yuhua's face paled. She also ran a chamber of commerce, so of course she knew the consequences of reselling a customer's reserved item. No matter how high the price, there was no way to make up for the loss of reputation. To put it bluntly, Kai Zhongyang suspected that the Universal Chamber of Commerce was deliberately using this method to ruin the reputation of the Five Elements Commerce. But asking him to take out the Yang pole grass was indeed a bit too much. "Chairman Kai, I know this will make things difficult for you, but as you can see, my father's life is in danger. He's just waiting for the Yang pole grass to save his life. The Universal Chamber of Commerce will bear all the consequences of this. When we reach the far north island, whether it's the compensation or the explanation to the customer, I'll take care of it. Also, the price of the Yang pole grass will be decided by you, Chairman Kai. I only ask that you save my father's life." At the end of her sentence, Yuhua's eyes were filled with tears. Kai Zhongyang was in a very difficult position. If Zheng Dongsheng hadn't pointed out that he had the Yang pole grass, then perhaps he would have agreed to Shang Yuhua's request. However, because of Zheng Dongsheng's malicious gaze, Kai Zhongyang couldn't help but feel uneasy. Kai Zhongyang really couldn't bring himself to cut off Shang Yuhua. Although he was a businessman, he was also a soft-hearted person. Haha, Vice Chairman Kai, you really have a cold heart. That little girl is already begging you, and yet you still won't budge. Are you afraid that the price is too low? You want her to give you the price herself?" Zheng Dongsheng made sarcastic remarks on the side, which made Kai Zhongyang more certain that there must be a problem, but he didn't know where the problem was. Ho Guanqi sighed in his heart, but he didn't know what to say. He wanted to save Shang Wani, but he knew that Kai Zhongyang was in a difficult position. If he tried to persuade Kai Zhongyang, he would definitely listen to him. But that wasn't the result he wanted. After being reminded, Yuhua immediately said, "Chairman Kai, I am willing to pay 500,000 spirit jades for the Yang pole grass. I will also take care of all the aftermath. At the same time, the Universal Chamber of Commerce still owes you a favor." The surrounding crowd couldn't help but gasp. 500,000 spirit jades was definitely a large sum. Although not many people knew about the yin yang pill, there were still those who had heard of it. They had already spread the news to those who didn't know about it. This type of pill was more troublesome to refine, but it was still a yellow level 7 pill. Normally, it would sell for 70 to 80,000 spirit jades at most, and that was if it was a completed pill. Yang pole grass was one of the main ingredients of the yin yang pill, so its value could not be compared to a completed pill. Although the yang pole grass was an extremely rare spirit herb, its normal selling price was at most 10,000 spirit jades. In a normal auction, it would be considered a sky-high price if it was sold for 20 to 30,000 spirit jades. Yet, Shang Yuhua had asked for 500,000 spirit jades and even promised to take care of all the loose ends. Furthermore, she had even done Kai Zhongyang a favor. The surrounding crowd even had the thought of killing Kai Zhongyang and robbing him. "Miss Shang, you know that this isn't a matter of the amount of spirit jades. Kai Zhongyang smiled bitterly as he shook his head. Before he figured out Zheng Dongxing's intentions, he wouldn't dare agree to Yuhua's request. Miss Shang, he thinks that your price is too low, Zheng Dongsheng said in a neutral tone, but deep down he was feeling great. If he could deal with someone close to Lin Yi, no matter who it was, he would be very happy. Wei Shenjin didn't wait for Yuhua to raise the price again. He stood in front of her and said to Kai Zhongyang, Chairman Kai, I really need your help this time. There won't be only one yang pole grass. When we pass by the northern island, we can go up there and search. Maybe we can find another yang pole grass for you to bring to the client. But Chairman Shang can't wait until we reach the northern island. A human life is at stake, so I hope Chairman Kai can consider it. Kai Zhongyang looked at Wei Shenjin with slight surprise. He didn't have to give face to Yuhua Shang, but Wei Shenjin was Lin Yi's little brother. No matter what, he couldn't refuse Lin Yi. Not to mention that Lin Yi had just given him 2 spirit-tempering pills. Their previous friendship was not something that could be measured by a mere yang pole grass. Shang Yuhua looked at Wei Shenjin in surprise. Today, Wei Shenjin seemed to be completely different from before. He was calm, decisive, and considerate. Well, that wasn't important. What was important was that Shang Yuhua suddenly remembered that Lin Yi was Wei Shenjin's boss, and that Kai Zhongyang and Lin Yi were good friends. Maybe Wei Shenjin's words could really make Kai Zhongyang change his mind? Shang Yuhua, who had been slowly losing hope, suddenly had hope again. However, Wei Shenjin suddenly said, Chairman Kai, this is my own request. It has nothing to do with Boss Lin Yi. Although I really hope that you can agree to sell the yang pole grass, I don't want it to be because of Boss. Shang Yuhua didn't know how to describe her feelings. Was she calling Wei Shenjin an idiot? With Lin Yi's face, he actually didn't want it. Moreover, he didn't even need to say anything. Kai Zhongyang would have considered it himself, but he just had to open his mouth and make such a statement. But it was precisely this kind of Wei Shenjin that made Shang Yuhua feel that he was very responsible. A responsible man would not be bad no matter what. The problem was that if Kai Zhongyang refused to sell the yang pole grass because of this, Shang Yuhua wasn't sure if she would hate Wei Shenjin. Maybe she would, maybe she wouldn't. Fortunately, Shang Yuhua didn't need to think about the answer to this question, because Kai Zhongyang had nodded. Little Wei, you underestimate yourself too much. Even if I don't give Brother Lin face, do you think I'll ignore you? We've interacted a lot these past 2 years. Don't tell me you don't see me as your friend. You're actually calling me Chairman Kai? Kai Zhongyang stared hard at Wei Shenjin, then took out a small, thin, and flat jade box and handed it to Wei Shenjin. This is my yang pole grass. I'm giving it to you. Take it. Don't mention the spiritual jade. It'd be best if the North Island has it, but it doesn't matter if it doesn't. I can handle this myself. You don't need to interfere. Since Kai Zhongyang had made up his mind, he cast aside all his worries and spoke casually to Wei Shenjin and Shang Yuhua. To be continued. Chapter 5833. Shang Yuhua didn't expect the situation to change so quickly. She didn't know how to react for a moment. After hearing Kai Zhongyang's words, she immediately bowed and said, Chairman Kai, thank you for saving my life. Everything I said before is valid. I will give you the spirit jades immediately. Kai Zhongyang waved his hand and said, I said that this is for little Wei. If you bring up the spirit jades again, return the yang pole grass to me. I, Kai Zhongyang, won't go so far as to ruin the reputation of 5 Elements Commerce for some spirit jades. But for a friend, it doesn't matter. Zheng Dongsheng, who was at the side, smiled darkly. He seemed to be very satisfied with the yang pole grass that Kai Zhongyang took out, so he didn't say anything else to provoke him. Thank you, Chairman Kai. When my father wakes up, he will definitely pay a visit to thank you. Shang Yuhua didn't say anything else. Right now, the most important thing was to refine the yin-yang pill to save Shang Wani. Everything else could be put aside. Wei Shenjin didn't thank Kai Zhongyang too much. Some things couldn't be done with just a word of thanks. That's why there's a saying that great kindness can't be expressed with words. As for Kai Zhongyang's gratitude, he would only remember it in his heart. When there's a chance in the future, he will definitely repay it. After passing the jade box to Shang Yuhua, Wei Shenjin looked at Zheng Dongsheng. Now that he had the yang pole grass, it was time to see what this old man would say about the yin core fruit. Shang Yuhua walked a few steps forward and arrived in front of Zheng Dongsheng and said, "Grandmaster Zheng, this junior has already obtained the yang pole grass. Can we discuss the price of the yin core fruit now?" Zheng Dongsheng stroked his beard with the demeanor of an expert and said, "Seeing your filial piety, I will sell the yin core fruit to you according to the market price. 10,000 spirit jades will do." When these words were said, not only was Shang Yuhua surprised, but everyone else at the side didn't think that after the yang pole grass had already appeared, Shang Yuhua's desire for the dark core fruit didn't need to be said. Just now, the yang pole grass was priced at 500,000 spirit jades. Now, even if Zheng Dongsheng called out a sky-high price of 1,000,000 spirit jades for the dark core fruit, Shang Yuhua would still readily agree. But Zheng Dongsheng actually asked for a market price of 10,000 spirit jades. In fact, it was even cheaper than a market price. If it was brought to an ordinary auction, it would fetch at least 20,000 spirit jades. Could it be that this Zheng Dongsheng was really a good person of noble character and unquestionable integrity? Wei Shenjin expressed that he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. Shang Yuhua didn't say anything and immediately took out a red spirit jade card and handed it to Zheng Dongsheng. This was a spirit jade storage card that the Heavenly Island Commerce Alliance had introduced to facilitate settlement. The red color represented 10,000 spirit jades. In addition, there were orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple, which represented 50,000, 100,000, 500,000, 1,000,000, 5,000,000, and 10,000,000 spirit jades, respectively. Zheng Dongsheng didn't go back on his word. After receiving the spirit jade card, he readily handed the jade box containing the yin core fruit to Shang Yuhua. After Shang Yuhua received the yin core fruit, she used both hands to bring it to Zheng Dongsheng along with the yang pole grass and said, "Grandmaster Zheng, I will have to trouble you to help me refine a yin-yang pill. If my father is able to wake up, he will definitely reward you greatly." "Miss Shang, didn't I already say it? The yin-yang pill's refining method is very special. This old man can't refine it," Zheng Dongsheng said with an innocent face. Hearing this, Shang Yuhua suddenly felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Thinking about it carefully, Zheng Dongsheng seemed to have really said so. But before, he didn't even have the materials, so it was meaningless to say anything else. But now that he had the main ingredient, he couldn't refine it. Wasn't it still the same? Wei Shenjin just wanted to speak, but Zheng Dongsheng comforted her. "Miss Shang, don't worry. This old man can't refine it for a reason. It doesn't mean that others can't refine it. Please guide me, Grandmaster Zheng." Shang Yuhua's hope rose again, and she quickly and respectfully asked Zheng Dongsheng for advice. The yin-yang pill is special in that it requires 2 alchemists to cooperate to refine it. Moreover, it must be a man and a woman. The man focuses on the yang, and the woman focuses on the yin. Otherwise, it will only be a waste of materials, and it is absolutely impossible to refine it successfully. That's why I said that I can't refine it by myself. As Zheng Dongsheng spoke, the corner of his mouth revealed a slight smile. Shang Yuhua's eyes suddenly lit up. On this ancient battleship, there was an excellent female alchemist, Li Zhaoyi. She was the chief alchemist of the Alchemy Hall. With her help, the yin-yang pill would definitely not be a problem. "Grandmaster Zheng, if you and Master Li Zhaoyi refine it together, there won't be a problem, right?" Shang Yuhua hurriedly asked. As long as Zheng Dongsheng nodded, she would immediately ask Li Zhaoyi to help, no matter what the price was. Unexpectedly, Zheng Dongsheng still shook his head and said, "I don't have enough energy. I'm afraid I can't cooperate with Master Li Zhaoyi. However, my grandson, Zheng Tianqing, is also a good alchemist. His alchemy ability is almost the same as mine. If he cooperates with Master Li Zhaoyi, it should not be a big problem." Shang Yuhua also had an impression of Zheng Tianqing's words, but it was not a good impression. What happened in the restaurant that day had been proved that Zheng Tianqing had poisoned the food, but now she couldn't be picky. Saving Shang Wani was the most important thing. Master Li Zhaoi doesn't seem to be here. I'll ask her to come over immediately. Shang Yuhua looked around and didn't see Li Zhaoi. She probably didn't come out of the room, so she immediately went to find Li Zhaoi. Zheng Dongsheng raised his hand to stop her and said, "Miss Shang, don't worry. I've already asked someone to invite Master Li Zhaoi and my grandson. When they come, you can discuss the details with them." "Thank you, Grandmaster Zheng. It's really thanks to you this time. Otherwise, my father would really be in danger." Shang Yuhua bowed gratefully and thanked him. Although Zheng Dongsheng didn't seem to be a good person, he did help. At this time, the strange feeling in Lin Yi's heart became more and more obvious, but there were too few clues for him to figure it out. After a while, Li Zhaoi was really invited to the deck. Of course, Zheng Tianqing was always behind her, so there was no need to find him again. Shang Yuhua stepped forward and bowed respectfully, then sincerely asked, "Master Li Zhaoi, my father, Shang Wani, has been possessed by the devil because of his carelessness in cultivation. Now only the yin and yang pill can save his life, so I beg you to help me refine the pill. I prepared the materials. As long as you agree, I can agree to any conditions." Li Zhaoi frowned a little. She looked at Shang Wani, who was still lying down and twitching slightly. She shook her head and said, "I can't refine the yin and yang pill." Shang Yuhua thought that Li Zhaoi was referring to the fact that she couldn't refine the elixir alone, so she immediately pointed at Zheng Tianqing and said, "I know that the yin-yang pill needs 2 alchemists to refine it together. Master Zheng just told me about it, and he said that his grandson, Zheng Tianqing, is also an alchemist master, so he can cooperate with you to refine the yin-yang pill." Chapter 58-34. Zheng Tianqing immediately laughed and said, "Yes, I am indeed an alchemist, but I dare not be called a master. However, if I can cooperate with Master Li Zhaoi, I think it will not be a problem to refine the yin and yang pill. Miss Shang, please rest assured that I, Zheng Tianqing, will not shirk from this task." "Thank you, Alchemist Zheng." Shang Yuhua did not expect Zheng Tianqing to agree so readily, but in this way, there should be no problem with Li Zhaoi, right? "Master Li Zhaoi, you see that Alchemist Zheng has agreed. When can you start refining the pill?" Shang Yuhua looked at Li Zhaoi expectantly, hoping that she would nod immediately. Unfortunately, the expressionless Li Zhaoi still shook her head resolutely and said, "I can't refine the yin and yang pill." This time, Shang Yuhua's face really changed. Why was refining the pill so troublesome? Twists and turns were not enough to describe it. She was about to achieve her goal, but Li Zhaoi inexplicably refused to refine the pill. If it were not for the fact that Li Zhaoi was the only suitable female alchemist on the entire ancient battleship, Shang Yuhua would have fallen out with her. She was trying to save his life. "Do you think you were playing a game?" Zheng Dongsheng asked gently. "Master Li Zhaoi, don't you have the formula for the yin and yang pill?" "It doesn't matter. I have it here. I believe that with your strength, it will not be a problem for you to refine the yin and yang pill." "I have the formula, but I can't refine the yin and yang pill." Li Zhaoi glanced at Zheng Dongsheng faintly and said without hesitation. Shang Yuhua was so anxious that tears came out her eyes. She bowed and pleaded, "Master Li Zhaoi, my father's life is really at stake. Please help us once, and we will be very grateful. If you have any request, you can put forward it. As long as we can do it, we will never refuse." Li Zhaoi showed an awkward expression on her face, but she did not seem to want to agree. She still shook her head and said, "You don't understand. I will auction my alchemy rights when I go to the extreme North Island this time. We, the Universal Chamber of Commerce, will buy it. No matter how much it costs, we will buy it." Shang Yuhua suddenly raised her head and couldn't wait to say loudly, "Master Li Zhaoi, are you worried that after refining elixirs here, you may not be able to refine elixirs again when you reach the extreme North Island because of the loss?" "It doesn't matter. I'll buy the alchemy rights this time. Master Li Zhao, you don't need to attend the auction anymore. It's not like that. Let me finish. Li Zhao's tone was still indifferent, without the slightest fluctuation. Refining the elixir consumes physical strength, but this is not the main reason. If it were any other elixir, I would definitely help, but not the yin and yang elixir. Wei Shenjin said unhappily. Why can't the yin and yang pill work? If it wasn't for the fact that the yin and yang pill requires a female alchemist, I would have asked my boss for help long ago. Do you think that you're the only one here who knows alchemy? My boss's alchemy skills are much better than yours. Li Zhaoi glanced at Wei Shenjin and didn't argue with him. She just continued to say, when refining the yin and yang pill, because yin and yang meet, water and fire blend, the alchemist must be naked. It doesn't matter if I'm alone, but it's absolutely impossible to refine elixirs with others. Shan Yuhua was stunned. If it were her, she might not agree, let alone Li Zhaoi. They had nothing to do with the Shang family. Why should she sacrifice her innocence to help them? Zheng Tianqing said solemnly, Master Li Zhao, as the saying goes, doctors have the heart of a parent. Although it's a little troublesome to refine the yin and yang pill, Vice President Shang is in danger. How can some small things be more important than saving a life? Shan Yuhua opened her mouth, but she couldn't make any sound. Li Zhaoi had already made it so obvious. What else could she say? It was related to a girl's reputation, and Li Zhaoi was the chief alchemist of the Alchemy Hall. She really couldn't do such a difficult thing. Li Zhaoi looked very embarrassed. Zheng Tianqing struck while the iron was hot and continued to say righteously, Master Li Zhaoi, as an alchemist, you must overcome all difficulties on the path of alchemy in order to spy on a higher realm. If Master Li Zhaoi is not even willing to refine the yin and yang pill to save a life, I'm afraid you will stop on the path of alchemy in the future. With your talent, are you really willing to stop completely because of a mere yin and yang pill? What he said was somewhat reasonable. After a slight pause, Li Zhaoi actually began to consider such a possibility. Zheng Tianqing was secretly delighted. This was the best opportunity to win over Li Zhaoi. As long as she agreed to refine elixirs with Zheng Tianqing, the chief alchemist of the Alchemy Hall would be his plaything in the future. Master Li Zhaoi, time waits for no one. We can wait slowly, but Vice President Shang can't wait. Hurry up and refine the yin and yang pill with me. This sort of thing like watching someone die. Without helping, if it gets out, not only will it damage your reputation, even the pill hall will be smeared along with it. Zheng Tianqing smiled proudly, then pretended to be a gentleman and said, Don't worry, when I refine elixirs, I will definitely close my eyes. I will definitely not peek at you. If he hadn't said this, it would have been fine. After hearing his words, Li Zhaoi's pretty face suddenly turned cold. She snorted and said, You can refine elixirs with your eyes closed? You are indeed a top genius. I, Li Zhaoi, don't have that kind of ability. Zheng Tianqing wanted to say that he didn't mind her opening her eyes to look at him. Unfortunately, before he could speak, Lenny walked out and said to him coldly, Get lost. Don't block my way. Boss. Wei Shenjin hurriedly came over and said, Vice President Shang has been possessed by the devil. The situation is very bad. Lenny nodded and said, I know. You don't have to say anything more. Li Zhaoi suddenly said, Lin Yi, refine the yin and yang pill with me. This sudden suggestion made Lin Yi slightly stunned. He didn't expect that Li Zhaoi would have such an idea. Zheng Tianqing's face was livid. He had talked for a long time, but Li Zhaoi still didn't agree to refine elixirs with him. As soon as Lin Yi appeared, she took the initiative to ask to refine elixirs with him. It was simply too much. Master Li Zhaoi, Lin Yi is the enemy of our alchemy hall. How can you say such a thing? Even if you want to refine the yin and yang pill, it should be me and you, right? Zheng Tianqing asked loudly with some exasperation. He had deliberately wanted to use this opportunity to refine the yin and yang pill to capture Li Zhaoi. How could he give up so easily? Not to be continued. Chapter 58:35. Li Zhaoyi said faintly, "It's not up to you to decide who the enemy of Dan Hall is. Not to mention that you are just the grandnephew of Vice Hall Master Zheng. Even Vice Hall Master Zheng cannot represent the position of Dan Hall." These two sentences could be said to be quite serious. Not only did Zheng Tianqing's face change, even Zheng Dongjue, who was on the side, felt ashamed he couldn't be bothered with a small character like Zheng Tianqing. He came out to refine the yin and yang pill to save Shangwani. The two main ingredients were ready. As long as he had the elixir formula, his Shinnon cauldron would definitely be able to refine the yin and yang pill. "Why do you want to refine pills with me?" He was also very curious about Li Zhaoyi's proposal, so he asked. Li Zhaoyi said expressionlessly, "A person who says that he wants to refine pills with his eyes closed will never put his mind on alchemy. Even if he really closes his eyes, his mind will only fall on me. Besides, I don't think he will really close his eyes. Since I'm going to refine pills, I must refine the yin and yang pill to save Vice President Shang. I'm afraid this kind of person with distracting thoughts has never thought about refining the yin and yang pill successfully. He just wants to take advantage of me." It was rare for this girl to say so much. He really admired her. No wonder she was so impolite to Zheng Tianqing and Zheng Dongjue just now. It turned out that she was not stupid. She knew Zheng Tianqing's silly mind like the back of her hand. It was not wrong to say that Zheng Tianqing didn't care about whether he could refine the yin and yang pill at all. This kid was thinking about how to take the opportunity to get Li Zhaoyi. Whether Shangwani was dead or alive, it had nothing to do with him. "You said that you want to refine the yin and yang pill with you, so you should have the elixir formula of the yin and yang pill, right?" He smiled slightly and did not respond to Li Zhaoyi's words. Li Zhaoyi nodded and said, "Of course I have the recipe for the yin and yang pill. Although this kind of pill is relatively unpopular, I like to collect all kinds of pill recipes. The yin and yang pill recipe is one of them. If you agree, we can start refining the yin and yang pill immediately." Shang Yuhua grabbed Wei Shenjin's hand subconsciously, but she didn't notice it at all. She was just nervous. This damn yin and yang elixir was really torturing her. Saying that it was full of twists and turns was not enough to describe the ups and downs. Now, as long as Linny agreed, her father could be saved. "Give me the pill formula first." Linny didn't agree or disagree. He just asked Li Zhaoyi to give him the prescription first. Last time, this girl came to ask about Shi Jun's recovery method or prescription. Maybe it was because she liked to collect prescriptions? Li Zhaoyi didn't suspect anything. She quickly took out a small piece of parchment from her small bag and handed it to Linny. "This is the prescription of the yin and yang pill. You have to carefully verify that what you're doing is correct. If you don't do this, I will also feel that you are not qualified to refine the pill with me." He smiled faintly. This girl was quite arrogant. She wanted to secretly test the other party's professionalism when she was looking for someone to refine the pill. Unfortunately, she didn't know that he had never intended to refine the pill with her. After a few quick glances, the contents of the prescription had already been memorized by Linny. Except for the two main ingredients, the encore fruit and the yang pole grass, the rest of the auxiliary licorice grass were indeed very common. He had a lot of licorice grass in his own reserves. After returning the prescription to Li Zhaoyi, Linny smiled and said, "I'm sorry, I won't refine the yin and yang pill with you." Shang Yuhua suddenly clenched her fingers. She didn't even feel her fingertips pinching into Wei Shenjin's palm. Wei Shenjin's expression didn't change, as if it wasn't his palm at all. Li Zhaoyi was stunned and asked in confusion, "Why? Do you think you can't refine the yin and yang pill?" But the yin and yang pill is only a 7th grade yellow level pill, except for the special refining conditions. It shouldn't be difficult for you, right? Zheng Dongsheng took the opportunity to say, "Master Li Zhaoyi, since he doesn't want to help Vice President Shang, you should refine the yin and yang pill with my grandson." To be honest, putting aside Lin Yi's hostility to our Dan Hall, his tacit understanding with Master Li Zhaoyi is also a problem. In addition, Tianqing is also a member of the Dan Hall. This kind of alchemy should be done with our own people. Shut up. It's not up to you, an alchemist from a famous medicine sect, to intervene in the affairs of the Dan Hall. Don't think that just because you're the cousin of Vice President Zheng, you can criticize the Dan Hall. Li Zhaoyi really didn't have a good impression of the Zheng family. Even Zheng Dongsheng reprimanded them mercilessly. Ignoring Zheng Dongsheng's embarrassed face, Li Zhaoyi frowned and asked Lin Yi, do you think that you're the one who will suffer a loss if you refine pills with me? If Lin Yi felt that he couldn't refine the yin and yang pill, Li Zhaoyi would never believe it. Then, it might be possible that he would suffer a loss. But if it was refining the yin and yang pill, how could Lin Yi suffer a loss? Li Zhaoyi didn't care that she would suffer a loss, so why would Lin Yi care? To be honest, Li Zhaoyi really didn't understand what he was thinking at all. Shang Yuhua anxiously pulled Wei Shinjin and whispered into his ear, Brother Wei, please help me beg your boss. As long as he can refine pills, I can agree to any request he has. Also, if my father can wake up, I'm willing to marry you. Thinking of how Lin Yi had repeatedly expressed his intention to matchmake her and Wei Shinjin, Shang Yuhua felt that she seemed to understand something. Perhaps Lin Yi wanted to use this matter to make her willingly marry his little brother? To be honest, after getting along with him for a period of time, Shang Yuhua had unknowingly changed her view of Wei Shinjin. After saying that she was willing to marry Wei Shinjin, she didn't have any resistance. Instead, she had a faint thought that this was also very good. Originally, Shang Yuhua thought that Wei Shinjin would be overjoyed after hearing this. After all, as long as he was not blind, he would be able to understand his love for her. However, to her surprise, Wei Shinjin didn't have any joy at all. Instead, his expression changed slightly. When Wei Shinjin pulled his hand out of Shang Yuhua's without batting an eyelid, she realized that she had been holding his hand all along. When their hands separated, she felt an inexplicable sense of loss in her heart. Miss Shang, my boss is not a person who likes to be threatened. If he can save President Shang, he will definitely not stand by and do nothing. And I hope you know that I like you as a person, not a commodity that can be used for trading. Wei Shinjin whispered in Shang Yuhua's ear. This was the first time he had clearly said that he liked her, but perhaps after saying it, they would no longer have the possibility of being together. To be continued. Announcement. The app is online. It supports Android and Apple. Please follow the official WeChat account to download and install. AppSit. Chapter 5836. However, Wei Shinjin did not regret it. He wanted Yuhua, and he did not get her through a deal. Moreover, she thought that Lin Yi was threatening her, which was also unforgivable. Shang Yuhua's pretty face was pale. She felt that she was really stupid. Wei Shinjin had clearly shown his responsibility and his principles. How could she say such a thing? She wanted to tell Wei Shinjin that she was just too anxious, so she spoke without thinking, but in the end, she only opened her mouth and could not say a word, because Wei Shinjin had already bowed to Lin Yi and made a request. Boss, Vice President Shang's situation is urgent. Please refine the yin and yang pill to save Vice President Shang. Wei Shinjin respectfully requested. He did not ask whether Lin Yi could refine the yin and yang pill, because there was no need to ask at all. Even a fool like Zheng Tianqing said that he could refine it. So how could the boss not be able to refine it? Li Zhaoyi's view of Lin Yi had taken a sharp turn. Although the conversation between Shang Yuhua and Wei Shinjin was whispered, she still vaguely heard some of it. With her intelligence, she could naturally imagine other things that she did not hear clearly. Therefore, now Li Zhaoyi had already determined that Lin Yi wanted to use the matter of refining the yin and yang pill to force Shang Yuhua to marry Wei Shinjin. This kind of scum was not qualified to refine the yin and yang pill with her. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said to Wei Shinjin, Of course I will refine the yin and yang pill, but this favor cannot be given to you. Otherwise, people will really think that the two of us colluded to bully her. Shang Yuhua took a deep breath and calmed her emotions. Then she solemnly bowed to Lin Yi and said, Master Lin, it's Yuhua's fault. I measured the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. Big Brother Wei was such a responsible man. How could his boss be inferior to him? However, when Yuhua said that she wanted to marry Big Brother Wei, it wasn't a transaction, but from the bottom of her heart. No matter how this matter ends, I have to make this clear. Lin Yi patted Wei Shenjin's shoulder with a smile and said, Miss Shang is a good girl. Cherish her in the future and don't let her down. Boss. Wei Shenjin's face was slightly red, but he also knew that it wasn't the time to talk about this, so he could only lower his head and remain silent. Lin Yi beckoned to Yuhua and said, Bring me the yin-core fruit and yang pole grass. I will refine the yin-yang pill. Li Zhaoyi said coldly, I've changed my mind. You're not a good person. I don't want to cooperate with you anymore. Lin Yi shrugged and said indifferently, I'm sorry. I told you that I don't want to refine the yin-yang pill with you. It's just the yin-yang pill. I can refine it myself. Li Zhaoyi frowned and said, That's impossible. Even if you also have water and fire spiritual roots and can condense the fire of both water and fire, it is impossible for you to refine the yin-yang pill. There is only one yin-core fruit and yang pole grass. If you do this, Shang Wani will really die. Zheng Tianqing finally found a chance to step on Lin Yi's ass. He couldn't wait any longer and jumped out. Lin Yi, don't play around with people's lives if you want to brag. Master Li Zhao's alchemy skills are far above yours. Don't you know the difficulty of refining the yin-yang pill? What's more, you didn't even have the recipe for the yin-yang pill. After peeping at Master Li Zhao's recipe, you said that you can refine it by yourself. Do you really think this is a joke? Lin Yi glanced at him disdainfully and sneered, Summer insects can't talk about ice. If you can't do it yourself, does it mean that no one in the world can do it? You're a frog in a well. You'd better go back and read a few more books to improve your knowledge. Otherwise, you will lose face for the Zheng family. Zheng Dongsheng sneered and said, The descendants of the Zheng family don't need to listen to people like you who talk nonsense. Instead of letting you waste elixirs, it's better to let my grandson and Master Li Zhao refine the yin-yang pill together. Li Zhao did not speak this time, but looked at Lin Yi coldly, wanting to see how he was going to end this. As for Shang Wani's life, Li Zhao would certainly save him if he could, but in this situation, he might not be able to. Lin Yi ignored the idiots of the Zheng family, turned to Shang Yuhua, and said, Miss Shang, if I say that I can refine the yin-yang pill, do you believe me? If you believe me, give me the thing. If you don't believe me, just pretend that I didn't say anything. He saved Shang Wani because Lin Yi and Shang Wani had a good relationship, and they had just finalized some small cooperation before. Secondly, he did it for the sake of Wei Shenjin. However, if Shang Yuhua did not believe him, Lin Yi would definitely turn around and leave. There is no need for him to beg her to let him refine elixirs to save Shang Wani. Shang Yuhua did not hesitate this time. She had heard too many magical deeds of Lin Yi from her father, and she still admired him in her heart. Moreover, this was Wei Shenjin's boss. Out of trust for Wei Shenjin, she would also choose to believe Lin Yi. Seeing Shang Yuhua hand over the two main ingredients to him without any hesitation, Lin Yi was somewhat surprised. He thought that Shang Yuhua would at least consider it. Zheng Dongxing's complexion was extremely ugly. He coldly snorted and said, The yin-core fruit is this old man's. It is used to save people, not for you, Lin Yi, to waste. If you really want to refine the yin-yang pill, then I'm sorry, this old man will not sell the yin-core fruit. Lin Yi laughed. His face was full of ridicule as he looked at Zheng Dongsheng and said, Zheng Dongsheng, you are really shameless. Money and goods have been exchanged. How can you say that you want to overturn it? No wonder you look like a dog. It turns out that you like to eat things that come out. The surrounding people suddenly burst into laughter. It was clear that they were also very disdainful of Zheng Dongxing's actions. On Heaven Step Island, you can steal and rob, but you can't go back on your word after completing the transaction. Doing so would attract everyone's disdain. Because of this, when Kai Zhongyang took out the yang pole grass, he hesitated. Zheng Dongsheng was also secretly regretting it. He was a bit anxious, so he didn't think carefully before speaking, allowing Lin Yi to seize the opportunity. But once the words left his mouth, spilled water was hard to take back. If he went back on his word, he would only be laughed at. Chapter 58:37. After all, he was a member of the All-Trade Chamber of Commerce. After calming himself down, he was very skilled in handling things. His words were watertight, reminding him that the core fruit transaction had been completed and there was no room for regrets. He also explained that the new Spirit Jade card was only a token of gratitude and had nothing to do with the previous transaction. Lin Yi didn't care whether Zheng Dongsheng would accept the Spirit Jade card or not. He just sneered at him and turned back. The refining of the yin and yang elixir had to be done as soon as possible. Although Shang Wani was fine for the time being, there would always be some problems after a long time. Li Zhaoyi watched Lin Yi leave coldly and didn't say anything more. Since Shang Yuhua chose to believe Lin Yi, she certainly wouldn't fight for this job. Zheng Tianqing said unhappily, "Master Li Zhao, the people of the Shang family are really idiots. They actually believe that the liar Lin Yi can refine the yin and yang elixir by himself. It's a pity that the core fruit and the yang pole grass will be wasted." Li Zhaoyi didn't want to talk to him. She had just scolded the Zheng family so much, but this guy still had the cheek to come up to her. There was no one else who could be so shameless. In fact, Zheng Tianqing had no choice. It was necessary to win over Li Zhaoyi, who played a pivotal role in the Zheng family's control of the alchemy hall. Even if Li Zhaoyi slapped him in the face, he still had to lean over and let her slap him, not to mention that Li Zhaoyi had only scolded them. Shang Yuhua watched Lin Yi leave, but she was still a little nervous. Although she gave the things to Lin Yi so readily, it was absolutely false to say that she was not nervous about Shang Wani's life. Unconsciously, she subconsciously held Wei Xinjin's palm again, as if this could bring her some sense of security. Wei Xinjin felt her uneasiness and comforted her softly. "Don't worry, the boss never does things that he is not sure of. As long as he promised, he will definitely do it." Only then did Shang Yuhua find that her palm was holding Wei Xinjin's again. Listening to his whisper in her ear, her heart suddenly calmed down a lot. After a soft hum, she stopped talking. After returning to the room, Lin Yi opened a restriction, took out the Shinnong cauldron, and then entered the formula of the yin and yang elixir. As he expected, the automatic alchemy system did not require a man and a woman. As long as there was the input of genuine qi or divine awareness into the appropriate alchemy fire, the alchemy could be easily completed. After the automatic alchemy system's analysis, the most suitable alchemy script for refining the yin and yang pill was generated. Of the alchemy, step by step, the alchemy and the alchemy. In terms of refining time, the yin and yang pill was indeed longer than the spirit-quenching pill or even the mountain-gazing pill. It could be seen that the difficulty of refining this kind of elixir was indeed higher, but it did not matter. Anyway, he could succeed. After Lin Yi opened the Shinnong cauldron, he got 2 yin and yang elixirs, which was a surprise. The automatic alchemy system had expected only one. After all, there was only one set of materials. At most, there would be a little more leftover materials. He did not expect that the leftover materials could also be used to refine a yin and yang pill. Moreover, these 2 yin and yang pills were the best quality. If they were auctioned, the starting price would be at least 100,000 spirit jades. After packing up his things, Lin Yi opened the door and went to the deck. Most of the onlookers had left. After all, the life and death of Shang Wani was not worth staying in the same place to wait for the result. Only the relevant people were still there. For example, the Zheng family wanted to see Lin Yi make a fool of himself, and Li Zhaoyi also wanted to teach him a lesson. Hence, when Lin Yi appeared on the deck, Zheng Tianqing didn't even wait for him to speak before he laughed out loud and mocked. "Look, Master Lin is here. He actually used more than 4 hours to make the pill useless. I wonder how he's going to wake Vice President Shang up. Could it be that he's going to use those dregs?" He can save people with dregs. Master Lin's alchemy is really amazing. Zheng Dongsheng also sneered. Ignorant child, do you think that you can refine all the elixirs just because you can refine a few difficult elixirs? Miss Shang, you'd better prepare for your father's funeral. The difficulty of refining the yin and yang pill is extremely high. It may not be successful even in 24 hours. This kid doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He came out so soon. Needless to say, he must have failed. Shan Yuhua's face was pale and her body swayed slightly. Wei Shenjin clenched his fists slightly and said softly, "The boss will not let us down. Before the boss speaks, we don't need to pay attention to any gossip." After hearing Wei Shenjin's words, Shan Yuhua took a deep breath, looked at him, and nodded hard. At this point, she could only believe that Lin Yi could bring a miracle. Li Zhaoyi also frowned and looked at Lin Yi unhappily, waiting for him to speak. Lin Yi ignored the provocation of the grandfather and grandson of the Zheng family and went straight to Shan Yuhua. He turned his hand and took out a jade bottle, handed it to her, and said, "The yin and yang pill is refined. Hurry up and give it to your father." "Impossible," Zheng Tianqing shouted directly. Did Lin Yi really take out the yin and yang pill? A yin and yang pill that was refined in 4 hours? If he didn't know that Lin Yi was not someone to be trifled with, he would have rushed over and snatched the jade bottle. Li Zhaoyi did not have such scruples. She came directly to Shan Yuhua and said, "Let me see the jade bottle. I want to know if Lin Yi really refined the yin and yang pill." Shan Yuhua, who had just held the jade bottle in her hand, did not have time to thank Lin Yi before she encountered such a situation. She suddenly looked at Lin Yi with some hesitation, not knowing if he would mind. Of course, Shan Yuhua minded very much. She just wanted Shangwani to take the yin and yang pill immediately. Who would be happy to take out such a life-saving thing for others to study? What if there was an accident? At that time, there would be no second alchemy material to refine the yin and yang pill. Lin Yi glanced at Li Zhaoyi lightly and nodded to Shan Yuhua. It was no big deal. Even if Li Zhaoyi made an accident with this elixir, he still had another one with him. There was no need to worry that Shangwani would not have enough yin and yang pill to eat. Seeing Lin Yi nod, Shan Yuhua carefully handed the jade bottle to Li Zhaoyi. Li Zhaoyi opened the jade bottle with a solemn expression. Inside was a black and white elixir, like a Tai Chi pattern. There were 3 faint halos around it. It was definitely the yin and yang pill. Chapter 58-38. Zheng Tianqing suddenly looked like a duck that had been strangled by the neck. He stretched his neck and looked over with a flushed face. After a while, he cried, "Master Li Zhao, don't be fooled by this liar. How can the yin and yang pill be refined in such a short time? He must have prepared this yin and yang pill a long time ago, and now he is showing off." Li Zhao suppressed the shock in her heart, then looked at Zheng Tianqing with a cold face and said, "Are you doubting my judgment? Can't I tell whether the pill has just been refined or not?" Zheng Tianqing was suddenly speechless. He was also an alchemist, so he naturally knew that there would be a big difference between a pill that had just been refined and a pill that had been stored for a long time. However, it was too difficult for him to believe that Lin Yi had really refined the yin and yang pill by himself just now. Li Zhao snorted and ignored Zheng Tianqing. She returned the jade bottle to Shan Yuhua and said, "This is indeed the yin and yang pill. Your father can be saved. Hurry up and get it to him." "Thank you, Master Lin." "Thank you, Master Li Zhao." Shan Yuhua hurriedly thanked him, then took the jade bottle and put the yin and yang pill into Shangwani's mouth. The yin and yang pill melted in his mouth and quickly harmonized the water and fire genuine qi in Shangwani's body. In just a dozen breaths, his body stopped twitching, and a situation where half of his body was red and half of his body was pale slowly disappeared. The hot and cold qi gradually blended, and he slowly returned to his normal body temperature. Shan Yuhua was so excited that she covered her mouth and did not dare to make a sound, for fear that it would affect Shangwani's recovery. After a while, Shang Wani woke up. Except for a little listlessness, he basically had no other problems. Father, you finally woke up. You scared me to death. When Shang Yuhua saw Shang Wani sitting up, she immediately threw herself into his arms, and the tears that she had been holding back for a long time burst out of her eyes. The people of the Zheng family had quietly left. They were too ashamed to stay. Now there were only the people of the Universal Chamber of Commerce, Lin Yi, Li Zhao, Hou Guanqi, Kai Zhongyang, and others on the deck. As for the fact that Lin Yi could refine the yin and yang pill, Hou Guanqi and Kai Zhongyang did not find it strange. Seeing that Shang Wani had woken up, they did not stay any longer. After whispering to Lin Yi, they went back. Father, this time, it is all thanks to Master Lin Yi that we can save you. There is also President Kai of the Five Elements Commerce. Without his yang pole grass, we would not be able to refine the yin and yang pill. Shang Yuhua remembered that she should thank these benefactors. She quickly got up and wanted to tell Shang Wani about what had just happened. Shang Wani waved his hand and said, Yuhua, you don't need to say anything. Although I am possessed, I am still conscious. I know what happened here. As he spoke, he stood up and walked in front of Lin Yi. He solemnly cupped his fists and bowed. Master Lin, it is all thanks to Master Lin that I was able to survive this time. From now on, if you need any help, I, Shang Wani, will definitely die for you. Lin Yi waved his hand and said, Chamber of Commerce leader, you are too polite. We are friends. How can I sit back and do nothing when a friend is in trouble? Don't mention this again. Otherwise, I, Lin Yi, will not treat you as a friend. Okay, since Master Lin has said so, I will not say anything more. Shang Wani laughed and patted his chest hard. I can't thank you with words. Everything is in my heart. After talking to Lin Yi, Shang Wani solemnly thanked Li Zhaoyi. Although she did not directly refine the elixir, after all, she was willing to bet her reputation to refine the elixir for him. Moreover, she was the one who showed the elixir formula of the yin and yang pill to Lin Yi, so she should thank him. However, Li Zhaoyi obviously did not care much about Shang Wani's thanks. What she cared about was Lin Yi's alchemy, so she said a few perfunctory words absent-mindedly. She just wanted to ask Lin Yi about it. On one side, Shang Yuhua wiped away the tears on her face and whispered to Wei Shunjin with a sweet smile, Brother Wei, you are right. Your boss is really a man of his word, and he will never lie. Wei Shunjin whispered proudly, Of course my eyesight is very good now. I will never be wrong when I look at people. This implied words made Shang Yuhua blush slightly, and she felt a little sweet in her heart. Then she said in a lower voice, My eyes are not as good as yours, but I will not lie. What I said just now is true. Wei Shunjin was stunned and said, What did you say? Shang Yuhua stretched out her finger angrily and secretly pinched Wei Shunjin's arm. She said, Do you want me to say it again? Don't even think about it. It's fine if you don't remember. Wei Shunjin suddenly came to his senses, and he was naturally overjoyed. However, in front of her father, he did not dare to have any overly intimate actions. For a while, he also scratched his ears and didn't know what to do. At this time, Shang Wani was saying to Lin Yi, Master Lin, you have worked hard today. When you are free, I will visit you. There are still some things I want to ask Master Lin about my chi deviation this time. President Shang can come at any time. You also need to have a good rest today. I will go back first. Also, if President Shang treats me as a friend, don't call me Master Lin in the future. Just call me Lin Yi. Lin Yi said with a smile. Shang Wani seemed to be a good person, and the Universal Chamber of Commerce's influence in Zhongdao was not bad. It was always good to have one more friend. Shang Wani laughed and said, Well, I will call you Brother Lin like President Kai Zhongyang. Brother Lin, don't call me President Shang Wani anymore. That is really too formal. Lin Yi smiled and nodded. Brother Shang. When they were chatting, Li Zhaoyi was already a little impatient. Now, she said lightly, President Shang needs to take a good rest. You'd better go back and rest early. Shang Wani was a veteran in the business world. As soon as he heard this, he knew that he was a hindrance. After all, he was a person who had helped him before. It was not good for him not to give face. He immediately said goodbye to Lin Yi with a smile and said goodbye to Li Zhaoyi. Seeing that her father was leaving, Shang Yuhua hurriedly whispered to Wei Shenjin, "Let's go to the restaurant for breakfast tomorrow morning." After that, without waiting for Wei Shenjin to answer, she turned around shyly and walked 2 steps quickly, leaving with Shang Wani. Chapter 58-39. Boss, do you want to have breakfast with us? Wei Shenjin scratched the back of his head and asked with a smile, but Lin Yi guessed that this guy did not want a third wheel to follow him. Without waiting for Lin Yi to answer, Li Zhaoyi had already said to him, "Lin Yi, wait. What's the matter?" Lin Yi thought that he should at least give her some face after seeing her elixir recipe, so his tone was still gentle. In fact, seeing Li Zhaoyi's attitude towards the Zheng family, Lin Yi felt a little more friendly towards her. Although they were not friends, at least this girl was not an enemy. Did you really refine the yin and yang pill alone, and it's a special quality yin and yang pill? Although the facts are in front of her, Li Zhaoyi could not help but ask. Lin Yi shrugged and said with a faint smile, "What's so strange about this? You saw it yourself. Do you still need to ask me?" Li Zhaoyi frowned slightly and muttered to herself, "This is impossible. Why is it like this? How can yin and yang pill be refined by one person?" Lin Yi thought that with the automatic alchemy system, there was no elixir that was impossible to refine. Of course, he would not tell this girl these words. There is nothing impossible in this world. You think it's impossible because you haven't found a way to make the impossible possible. Lin Yi said casually and prepared to leave. If she only asked this question, then he really didn't have much to say. Li Zhaoyi's eyes lit up and she repeated in a low voice, "There is nothing impossible in this world. You think it's impossible because you haven't found a way to make the impossible possible." These words sounded ordinary, but the more she thought about it, the more it made sense. Li Zhaoyi's gaze towards Lin Yi also changed a little. She only felt that this guy was really unfathomable. "Okay, if there's nothing else, I'm leaving." Lin Yi waved his hand and beckoned Wei Shenjin to go back. Li Zhaoyi hurriedly stretched out her hand and said, "Wait a minute, Lin Yi. Can you teach me your method of refining the yin and yang pill? I can use pill formulas, spirit herbs, and so on to exchange with you." As for spirit jades, Li Zhaoyi didn't mention them at all. She didn't think that an alchemist would lack spirit jades. Only those precious pill recipes and elixirs would arouse his interest. Lin Yi was really interested in Li Zhaoyi's offer. Unfortunately, he couldn't tell her the method of alchemy, so he could only give up regretfully. "I'm sorry, but my method is only suitable for myself. No one else can replicate it." Lin Yi shook his head. This was indeed the truth. "So you don't have to worry. No matter what you take out, I can't teach you." A trace of disappointment appeared on Li Zhaoyi's face. She then asked, "Lin Yi, can you tell me who your master is?" Lin Yi thought to himself, this weird girl really doesn't take the normal path. This kind of thing is usually someone else's privacy, right? Even if you want to ask, at least be tactful. How can you ask so straightforwardly? "Can you tell me?" Li Zhaoyi asked again, her eyes full of expectation. Lin Yi shook his head and chuckled. "Shangguan Tianhua." Li Zhaoyi was obviously stunned, and then frowned slightly. "That's not right. Shangguan Tianhua shouldn't know alchemy, right? How could he teach an alchemy master like you? You don't really believe it, do you?" Lin Yi was speechless as well. This was obviously bullshit, and yet this girl didn't even suspect a thing. She was even seriously considering how Shangguan Tianhua had taught Lin Yi how to concoct pills. Lin Yi was truly defeated by her. After this period of interaction, Lin Yi could tell that Li Zhaoyi was a little girl who didn't know much about the world. She was pure and kind, but because she didn't interact much with people, she was lacking in the ways of the world. She wasn't a bad person. Thinking that if Li Zhaoyi didn't get the right answer, she would probably come back and bother him again. Lin Yi didn't want to trouble her any further, so he might as well just tell her the truth. "Come here." I'll tell you a secret. Lin Yi waved at Li Zhaoyi, and when she got closer, he whispered, actually, you know my master as well. He's the head of your alchemy hall, Zhang Liju. Ah. Li Zhaoyi straightened up and looked at Lin Yi with an adorable face. She opened her mouth and asked after a while, really? Lin Yi smiled faintly. Guess. He didn't wait for Li Zhaoyi to say anything else and brought Wei Shinjin back. Zheng Tianqing, who was hiding and watching from afar, gritted his teeth. Lin Yi had almost put his mouth on Li Zhaoyi's ear. He'd been trying to please her for a few days, and he hadn't done anything intimate with Li Zhaoyi. What right did Lin Yi have to do that? Li Zhaoyi was still in a daze. She wanted to guess that Lin Yi was lying, but she felt that it was the truth. Other than Zhang Liju, who else in Sky Class Island had the ability to teach a disciple like Lin Yi? Wei Shinjin was very excited the whole way, and Lin Yi didn't bother with him. He sent him back to his room to sleep and went back to his own room. These 2 days, Lin Yi had been concocting elixirs, but now he didn't want to continue concocting elixirs. Instead, he wanted to train. When he leveled up before, he almost broke through to Mystic Ascension full circle, but in the end, he stopped at the peak of Mystic Ascension late stage, so Lin Yi wanted to try and see if he could find an opportunity to break through. After knowing that spiritual sense grassroot, spiritual sense fruit, and so on had a limit, Lin Yi had already given up on the idea of using spiritual sense to level up. Even if he wanted to use it, he could only do so after he entered the mountain opening stage. After entering the space of the Jade Pendant, Lin Yi began to use the Heavens Stealing Fortune battle art to train. The ghost was still in closed-door training, and no one would disturb him. It was the best time to train. However, Lin Yi estimated that he would not have a chance to enter the Mystic Ascension full circle in a short time. His current training was more about consolidating his previous improvements, and when the opportunity to advance appeared, he would be able to succeed in one fell swoop. The time spent in cultivation passed very quickly. After Lin Yi ran a few big circles, it was already noon. He didn't know how Wei Shinjin and Shang Yuhua ate breakfast. Maybe they would eat lunch or even dinner. After leaving the space of the Jade Pendant, Lin Yi's spiritual sense passed through the door restriction and found that Shang Wani was standing alone at the door. He didn't know how long he had been waiting. Lin Yi quickly opened the restriction and invited Shang Wani in. Brother Lin, sorry to disturb you. Shang Wani saw Lin Yi open the door and immediately smiled and cupped his fists. Did I disturb you? Chapter 5840. Shang Wani replied politely and followed Lin Yi into his room. After he sat down, he immediately took out a green spiritual jade card and placed it on the tea table. Brother Lin, if it wasn't for you, I'm afraid I wouldn't have survived today. These spiritual jades are not a gift of thanks. They're just a fee for Brother Lin's alchemy. Please don't decline. Although my life isn't worth much, it isn't something that can be bought with just a few spiritual jades. Lin Yi didn't act pretentiously. 500,000 spiritual jades to buy a chance for his alchemy was indeed not low, but compared to the life of Shang Wani, the vice president of the Universal Chamber of Commerce, it wasn't worth mentioning. Shang Wani's meaning was also very clear. Lin Yi had saved his life, and these spiritual jades couldn't make up for it. Moreover, from the future cooperation with Tiannan Pavilion, the profits from a few high-grade alchemy pills would be able to earn back this amount of spiritual jades. Since Shang Wani had already taken it out, if Lin Yi didn't accept it, it would make the relationship between the two seem distant. Therefore, he just nodded indifferently, casually thanked Shang Wani, and put away the spiritual jade card. Shang Wani's face revealed a happy expression. After chatting with Lin Yi for a while, he solemnly said, Brother Lin, the main reason I came here today is to talk to you about my chi deviation. Lin Yi nodded and said, Brother Shang, do you feel that your chi deviation this time is a bit sudden, so you feel strange? Yes, that's right. Shang Wani looked at Lin Yi with some surprise and said, Brother Lin, could it be that you already found something wrong with me? That's not it. Lin Yi shook his head, thought for a while, and said, I feel that Brother Shang's cultivation with your fire and water dual spiritual root is no longer in the dangerous period at the beginning. Generally, this kind of cultivation is the easiest in the early stage, but at your current stage, it is extremely stable and safe. If it isn't for breaking through the bottleneck of a big level, there basically won't be any danger. Shang Wani nodded in realization and said, Brother Lin, you're really insightful. My current strength is indeed still very far from breaking through the bottleneck of a major realm, so it's not very likely for me to go berserk. I didn't think of this. Brother Shang, are you saying that something abnormal happened to your body before you succumbed to qi deviation? So you're guessing that the crisis this time wasn't spontaneous? After listening to Shang Wani's words, Lin, he had this speculation. Actually, it was very easy to come to this conclusion. That's right, and I suspect that I was poisoned. Shang Wani's face suddenly darkened. He was also one of the important figures of Middle Island. If this could be confirmed, then his revenge would definitely not have the slightest mercy. This time, I had just started cultivating, and my true qi had only circulated less than 1/3 of the cycle. Suddenly, a strange kind of true qi appeared in my dantian and directly rushed into my true qi, breaking the original balance of the water and fire attributes. Although I tried my best to control it, I still couldn't stop this strange true qi. In the end, I could only barely maintain my consciousness when I was qi deviation. Lin Yi's face also became solemn. When he checked with his divine sense, he didn't find any signs of poisoning, but Shang Wani obviously wouldn't make a mistake. In other words, if that kind of poison really existed, it must be very well hidden and extremely difficult to be discovered. To be honest, when Lin Yi heard Shang Wani said that he was poisoned, the first thought that came to his mind was that Zheng Tianqing did it. However, Shang Wani and Zheng Tianqing didn't seem to have any grudges, so why did he do it to Shang Wani? Although he couldn't find the exact evidence and reason for it, Lin, he still had some confidence in his intuition. Not to mention anything else. After Shang Wani went qi deviation, Zheng Dongsheng and Zheng Tianqing's behavior was somewhat unusual. At that time, he had a very strange feeling. Therefore, when Shang Wani was poisoned, the Zheng family was the #1 suspect. Brother Shang, who did you have a grudge with recently? And who did you come into contact with before you were poisoned? Lin Yi's thoughts were not very clear, so he could only ask Shang Wani first to see if there were any clues. Shang Wani shook his head and said, Brother Lin, you also know that we do business, and harmony brings wealth. How can we have a grudge with others? Even if there are a few competitors, everyone is competing fairly. There is no need to secretly poison others, right? As for the people that I came into contact with before I was poisoned, there are too many of them. As I said, we do business, and we have to be on good terms with everyone. Lin Yi smiled bitterly and shook his head. It was really meaningless to say these things. However, he now remembered that Zheng Tianqing had been urging Shang Wani to refine the yin and yang pill. Could it be that this fool wanted to pursue Li Zhaoyi, so he deliberately framed Shang Wani to create this opportunity? Now that he thought about it, there was some truth to what he said. At the same time, Tong Wulsuo slightly disguised himself and carefully avoided possible attention. He entered the room where Zheng Dongju was. If possible, he did not want to meet with the Zheng family on the ship, but Zheng Dongjue had asked him to come through the agreed secret signal, so he had to come. As soon as he entered the room, Zheng Tianqing stood up, pointed at Tong Wulsuo, and shouted, Didn't you say that you would definitely help me get Li Zhaoyi this time? What happened in the end? You actually helped that bastard Lin Yi, tell me. Are you a spy sent by Lin Yi? Tianqing, don't be rude. Zheng Dongsheng scolded faintly, but there was not much severity in it. Obviously, he was just putting on a show. Tong Wulsuo bowed his head to the three people, but there was a trace of undetectable disdain in his eyes. A person like Zheng Tianqing, if not for his good family background, was really not worthy of his attention. I'm sorry, this time I miscalculated, Tong Wulsuo said calmly, but in his heart, he did not think that his plan had failed. Helping Zheng Tianqing, Get Li Zhaoi was just a small matter in this plan. Tong Wulsuo only needed to achieve his real goal. Zheng Dongjue glanced at Zheng Tianqing faintly and said, Tianqing, Tong Wulsuo has done a very good job, but he failed at the last step. It can only be said that the little girl Li Zhaoi is too stubborn and unwilling to cooperate with you. This is not something we can control. Second Grandpa, do you mean that I, Zheng Tianqing, am completely ignored by Li Zhaoi? Am I really so bad? Zheng Tianqing said with a face full of anger. He was a genius from Dongzhou. Who could compare with him in Middle Island? Tong Wulsuo narrated calmly, but he also felt that it was a pity that his plan did not succeed, and the key to the failure was that useless Zheng Tianqing, the so-called killing 3 birds with 1 stone. The first was to get rid of Shangwani, because he was close to Lin Yi and would become an existence like Kai Zhongyang in the future. It was much easier to get rid of him in advance than in the future. With the difficulty of refining the yin and yang pill, even if Li Zhaoi and Zheng Tianqing worked together, it would be difficult to successfully refine it in 24 hours. If there was no exception like Lin Yi, Shangwani would definitely be dead. Because if Li Zhaoi really cooperated with Zheng Tianqing, his mind would definitely not be on refining the pill, but would take the opportunity to take down Li Zhaoi, and it would not take long for the refining of the yin and yang pill to fail. Letting Zheng Tianqing take down Li Zhaoi was naturally the second bird, and the third and most important Kai Zhongyang was actually the least difficult. For example, now that the most important target, Kai Zhongyang, had been successful, Tong Wulsuo did not feel that the plan was a failure. After listening to Tong Wulsuo's explanation, Zheng Tianqing realized that he had underestimated this unattractive guy. In terms of strength, Tong Wulsuo was not as good as Zheng Tianqing, but in terms of scheming, he was still inferior. However, Zheng Tianqing, a guy who thought he was a genius, would never admit this. Deputy Hall Master, Master Zheng, the matter of Kai Zhongyang will be clear when we reach the northernmost island. Also, Ho Guanxi, according to my investigation, before leaving Middle Island, he should have exchanged for a mountain gazing stone. Although there is no evidence, I guess that it should be Ho Guanxi who exchanged for it for Lin Yi. After talking about Kai Zhongyang, Tong Wulsuo changed the topic to Ho Guanxi. Zheng Dongjue's eyes lit up and said, You mean that we can use this as an excuse to expel Ho Guanxi from the pill hall? No, we must confirm that Lin Yi took the mountain gazing stone. Only then can we convict Ho Guanxi. Do you have a way to confirm this? Tong Wulsuo smiled lightly and said, Deputy Hall Master, Lin Yi is going to the northernmost island for the God-gathering branch. According to my guess, in order to obtain the God-gathering branch, he should be gathering a large amount of spiritual jades. After passing by the northernmost island in 2 days, I heard that there will be a small trade fair on this ancient warship. We can find someone to purchase the mountain gazing stone or mountain gazing pill. We will know if Lin Yi has it. Good. Although it is a simple method, it is very practical. It is decided. Zheng Dongjue laughed and made the decision. He then asked, Oh right, didn't you say that you want to deal with Okuda Dam and implicate Okuda State? Do you have any ideas in this regard? Chapter 5842. Genius in a Second. Remember Love Go? The internet provides you with wonderful novels to read. After they set off again, a small trade fair would be held on the ancient battleship. Of course, everyone was free to participate in it. It was just a warm-up for the auction on the extreme North Island. Different from the regular auction, this kind of private trade fair was a private trade fair. One person would take out something he wanted to exchange and explain what he wanted to exchange. If someone was interested, they would make a deal, and then the next person would be replaced. However, Lin Yi didn't care about these for the time being. When he arrived at the North Island, he couldn't wait to go down and have a look. After being away for so long, was everything okay on the North Island? Were his brothers and friends all right? Why was Shanghai Laner suddenly picked up by Ram Jia from the Middle Island and returned to the North Island? This time, before Lin Yi opened the door himself, Wei Shinjin came to call him. Lin Yi had told him before that when they arrived at the North Island, he must go down and remind him to come over and remind him. It was rare for this guy to remember this when he was busy chasing after girls. Boss, we're about to dock at the North Island. We have 1 day and 1 night. Let's go. I can't wait to see your hometown. Wei Shinjin showed a big smile to Lin Yi, who opened the door and then pulled over Shang Yuhua, who was beside him, and said, Yuhua also wants to go with us. Let's go with you. Shang Yuhua blushed a little and rolled her eyes at Wei Shinjin coquettishly. Then she bowed to Lin Yi and said, Lin, boss, brother Wei, and I will go with you to the North Island to see the world. Lin Yi couldn't help smiling. Shang Yuhua had already followed Wei Shinjin to call him boss. It seemed that they were developing very fast. If it was really Zheng Tianqing who poisoned Shang Wani, Lin Yi felt that he should thank that idiot. Otherwise, how could Wei Shinjin and Shang Wani develop so smoothly? When we arrive at the North Island, of course, I will be the host. Don't worry and follow me. I will definitely impress you. Lin Yi said with a smile. Then he went out and led them to the deck. When the ancient battleship docked, Lin Yi was the first to leave. As the honorary vice captain, he had this little privilege. Boss, where are we going now? Wei Shinjin ran behind Lin Yi with Shang Yuhua and asked casually. Lin Yi said without looking back, of course, Blue Cloud Pavilion. Come with me. Let's go to see if the place I used to live is still there. When I left for a while last time, there was an idiot who took my house and dared to touch my friend. This time, it should be gone, right? Who is so bold to provoke you, boss? He is so bold. Wei Shinjin sighed. It was estimated that the guy would not have a good end in the end. It was okay for him to take Lin Yi's house. With Lin Yi's temperament, he would not care about it. But if he touched his friend, he was definitely looking for death. After following Lin Yi for so long, Wei Shinjin certainly knew how protective Lin Yi was. He would never allow outsiders to bully anyone who followed him. This was also one of the main reasons why Wei Shinjin was now so loyal to Lin Yi. Lin Yi smiled faintly and did not say much. The new player king, Horse Spear, seemed to be a distant memory. If he did not mention it casually, he would probably have forgotten about it. Lin Yi naturally would not waste too much time thinking about this kind of person. His thoughts had already turned to Shanghai Laner. He wanted to go to Blue Cloud Pavilion first, and then go to Soaring Pavilion to find Shanghai Laner. Although they had only been separated for a few days, Lin Yi was still very happy to be able to see Lan. As he thought about it, he had already extended his divine sense. With the strength of Lin Yi's current divine sense, although it could not cover the entire North Island, it was not a problem to extend it from the port to Blue Cloud Pavilion. To Lin Yi's surprise, there were a lot of people gathered at the entrance of Blue Cloud Pavilion. He basically knew the few people in the middle. Xiao Ran, Xiao Honkai, and Lu Bianren were his close friends. There were also Su Lingchong and Meng Tong, 2 old rivals, and another middle-aged man he did not know. Shopkeeper Su, don't worry. I will definitely give you an explanation for this matter. Lin Yi had not arrived yet, but his divine sense could truthfully feed back everything that happened over there. This sentence was said to Su Lingchong by the middle-aged man he did not know. Su Lingchong snorted, his face full of arrogance. He looked coldly at Xiao Ran and the other 2, and did not mean to speak. The middle-aged man turned his head and stopped smiling. He said to Xiao Ran coldly, Xiao Ran, you stole something from the Central Chamber of Commerce. Now, they have come to find you. What else do you have to say? You have completely disgraced Blue Cloud Pavilion. Quickly admit your guilt and make a good apology. Maybe Blue Cloud Pavilion can still give you a place. Otherwise, go back to where you came from. Lu Bianren said indignantly, Eldest senior brother, how can you be so partial to outsiders? You didn't even investigate and directly insisted that it was Xiao Ran who stole it? Could it be that the disciples of Blue Cloud Pavilion don't even have this little bit of backbone? The middle-aged, eldest senior brother's eyebrows twitched slightly. He did not know whether Lu Bianren was saying that Xiao Ran had no backbone or that he had no backbone. In any case, no matter which one it was, it made him unhappy. Lin, he secretly felt strange. Why is the eldest senior brother not Jiamu Fan? Where did this guy come from? Speaking of which, Lin, he still had a good impression of Jiamu Fan. Chapter 5843. Genius 1, Second Remember Love, Go Away. Talk Net providing you with wonderful novels to read. Xiao Honkai was furious. He had been holding in for a long time and was about to explode. Fortunately, he was pulled back by Xiao Ran and advised in a low voice, Junior brother Xiao, don't be impulsive. You won't be able to help. Hurry up and inform senior brother Ku. Let him think of a way. Lu Bianren smiled bitterly and didn't say anything. He didn't know what to do. Asking for trouble was also the same. Xiao Ran was just trying to divert Xiao Hongsai's attention. The few of them could be considered to be gentlemen, and as the saying goes, a gentleman can be deceived with methods. Su Lingchong and the others had precisely calculated that they were comparatively weaker in this aspect, and that was why they were so confident and in the right. If it was a slightly more shameless person, not to mention that he didn't steal anything, even if he really did steal something, he would still be able to completely deny it, causing them to be helpless. The middle-aged big senior brother sneered and said, Are you counting on the Welcome Pavilion's trouble to save you? Then you're thinking too highly of him. If he had this ability, would he still be a trouble? Su Lingchong and Meng Tong laughed evilly. The surrounding disciples were angry, but didn't dare to say anything. However, there were also not many who agreed with them. The middle-aged big senior brother turned his head and said to Su Lingchong with a face full of smiles, Shopkeeper Su, I'm really sorry about this matter. Blue Cloud Pavilion has such a shameful thing. It's also caused you trouble. Come, please take him away. Today I'll clean up the sect. Xiao Ran sneered and said, It's really shameful to have someone like you as the inner disciple of Blue Cloud Pavilion's big senior brother. If my boss was here, how could a clown like you have the chance to jump around? Meng Tong snorted coldly and reached out to grab Xiao Ran. At this moment, a voice that hadn't been heard for a long time came from outside the crowd. What's going on? Are you blocking the door? Is entry and exit prohibited today? Xiao Ran, Xiao Honkai, and Lu Bianren's eyes lit up. They had just mentioned Lin Yi, and Lin Yi was already here? Did it have to be so magical? As for Meng Tong, who was reaching out to grab Xiao Ran, his palm also paused in midair before he slowly retracted it. Senior Brother Lin is back. The disciples at the periphery immediately cried out in surprise when they saw who it was. In Blue Cloud Pavilion, Lin Yi was definitely a legendary figure. Those who didn't know about Lin Yi were probably the new disciples who had joined in the past 2 years. However, no matter where they went, they would hear about Lin Yi's legend. Therefore, they had subconsciously become loyal fans of Lin Yi. When they heard someone call him Senior Brother Lin, they immediately knew who it was. Su Lingchong's expression was somewhat ugly. He also didn't expect that Lin Yi would suddenly appear at this place. However, he immediately understood that Lin Yi had probably returned by an ancient warship. It was really a miscalculation. Boss, Xiao Ran and Xiao Honkai were extremely surprised. They no longer paid attention to Su Lingchong and the others. They broke through the encirclement and walked towards Lin Yi. Su Lingchong and Meng Tong didn't stop them because of Lin Yi's sudden appearance. Long time no see. Are all of you all right? Lin Yi smiled and greeted them. Then, he cupped his fists towards Lu Bianren and said, Senior Brother Lu, thank you for taking care of my brothers when I wasn't around. Lu Bianren cupped his fists and said with a bitter smile, Junior Brother Lin is too serious. It's good that you were able to return. My strength is low, and I couldn't help much. Senior Brother Lu has already helped. Lin Yi waved his hand and said solemnly, If it wasn't for Senior Brother Lu's care, I'm afraid that these brothers of mine would have been trampled on by others. Xiao Ran lowered his head and said in shame, Boss, we're useless. We've embarrassed you. Today's matter was deliberately caused by them. Su Lingchong and Meng Tong wanted to target me. Lin Yi waved his hand and said, I know what happened just now. Tell me, where did you get your things? If it was bought from the Central Chamber of Commerce, it was estimated that Su Lingchong would not come to find trouble so blatantly. There must be something fishy about it. Xiao Ran said in a low voice, the Central Chamber of Commerce is too expensive. I bought it from a disciple of Soaring Pavilion. He specializes in selling some things from the secular world. It is said that he has a way in the Central Chamber of Commerce and can get goods at a low price. Many disciples of the 3 pavilions in the North Island like to buy high-tech products from him. Lin, he snorted coldly. The disciple of Soaring Pavilion could get goods at a low price. Naturally, he had the background of the Central Chamber of Commerce. Xiao Ran buying things from such a person was simply giving people a handle. If Su Lingchong and the others wanted to find trouble, they could come at any time. Perhaps this was a plan to target Lin Yi's underlings. If no one fell for it, they'd just be getting rid of a batch of products from the common world at a low price. Compared to the cost price, the low price here was already a huge profit, and it wouldn't be a loss to the merchant group at all. If someone fell for it, like Xiao Ran, Su Lingchong and the others would be able to come looking for trouble openly. You're from a secular world. It's not like you haven't seen these things. What's more, you're a man. What's the use of this kind of camera? Do you want to take selfies and refresh your circle of friends? Chapter 5844. Genius 1, second remember if you want to go, to provide you with wonderful novels to read. After getting rid of Xiao Ran and installing his own men as the second senior brother in charge of the Blue Cloud Pavilion's outer sanctum, his next target might be Lu Bianren or Bitter Guy. After understanding these twists and turns, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't let Su Lingchong go just like that. He immediately laughed mockingly and said, if you want to settle the score with me, why wait until we turn back? Let's properly calculate it now. You owe me, and I should collect some interest. Su Lingchong laughed and said, you pretentious head, you really don't forget to pretentious no matter where you go. Do you think that after leaving for 2 years, you still have the final say here? Fine, today I'll see how you're going to collect interest from this young master. Meng Tong smiled sinisterly and said, Lin Yi, let's not talk about other things first. Xiao Ran stole the Central Chamber of Commerce's goods, and now he's caught with the stolen goods. If you don't hand him over to us, perhaps the people from the law enforcement hall will be happy to come and take him away. Caught with the stolen goods? Are you joking? Lin Yi snorted and stretched out his finger to point at the printed booklet in Meng Tong's hand and said, this kind of thing, as long as you have a computer and a printer, you can have as many as you want. You know the serial number of Xiao Ran's camera, so you can say that this camera is yours? I also know that one of you is called Su Lingchong and the other is called Meng Tong. Could it be that the 2 of you are spiritual beasts that I've raised? Su Lingchong said angrily, Lin Yi, stop twisting words and distorting the truth. How can knowing the name and knowing the serial number be the same thing? Lin Yi spread out his hands and looked at Su Lingchong and said, why don't you tell me what's different about it? Su Lingchong suddenly became sluggish. He was usually very quick-witted, but when it came to Lin Yi, he became hot-headed and actually choked. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't think of how to answer. The middle-aged, eldest senior brother shouted, how dare you? Lin Yi, don't pester endlessly here. You're throwing away the face of Blue Cloud Pavilion. Hurry up and move to the side, otherwise you will be punished according to the sect rules. Lin Yi cast a sidelong glance at this guy and lightly said, who the hell are you? Could it be that you're not afraid that I'll take you as my spiritual beast, just because I don't know your name? The middle-aged, eldest senior brother almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He thought to himself, when did I ever fear you taking me in as a spiritual beast? Do you think I'm afraid of you? No, you're the spirit beast. This fellow was also a little muddle-headed from anger. In his heart, he still hadn't figured out which point in Lin Yi's words he was angry about. Su Lingchong was so angry that he laughed and said, Lin Yi, don't be too arrogant. Do you think I'll be afraid of you now? To tell you the truth, this is the entrance of Blue Cloud Pavilion, so I don't want to bother with you. But if you don't know what's good for you, I'll kill you anytime. I don't believe that when this young master is in the right, Blue Cloud Pavilion will still stand up for you. Meng Tong also sneered and said, Why are you talking nonsense with him? Just kill him. Who asked him to hinder us from catching the thief? The strength of these two guys had already reached the great perfection of nascent soul stage. It could even be said that they were half a step into the profound ascension stage. They only needed to wait for the center to develop a stable, profound ascension stage potion. Then they would be able to improve immediately. Therefore, when facing Lin Yi, Su Lingqiong and Meng Tong could be said to be very confident. In their minds, no matter how strong Lin Yi was, it was impossible for him to improve faster than them. What's more, when the two of them joined forces, an ordinary early-stage Profound Ascension Stage cultivator or even a peak early-stage Profound Ascension Stage cultivator might not be their opponent. What else did they have to worry about? Xiao Ran couldn't help but interject. Do you really think you're so awesome? Don't you know that if you're not careful, you'll become an idiot? Su Lingqiong was too lazy to care about Xiao Ran now. In his eyes, only Lin Yi was his opponent. Xiao Ran? When Lin Yi hadn't returned, he could still pass the time. Since Lin Yi was back, this kind of small character was nothing. Meng Tong and Su Lingqiong were now telepathic. They immediately gave a look to the middle-aged big senior brother on the side, signaling him to take down Xiao Ran. The middle-aged big senior brother immediately understood and took a step forward. Xiao Ran, I'm now using my identity as the big senior brother in charge of the intersect to order you to surrender immediately and go with shopkeeper Su to the Central Chamber of Commerce to cooperate with the investigation. If you disobey again, I will report to the Pavilion Master and you'll be directly expelled from Blue Cloud Pavilion. So impressive, Blue Cloud Pavilion is opened by your family. You can expel people just because you say so. Lin Yi glanced at him disdainfully, then turned to Su Lingqiong and said, You rely on this kind of idiocy to deal with my brother? Sure enough, birds of a feather flock together. You're all jackals of the same tribe. Su Lingqiong snickered coldly and said to the middle-aged eldest senior apprentice brother Wang, It seems like your Clear Cloud Pavilion's people are not very obedient. Why don't you stay out of this and let us handle this matter ourselves? Senior brother Wang said angrily, Lin Yi, who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like this? Do you know who you are? You're just a has-been newcomer king, and you think you could do whatever you want in Blue Cloud Pavilion? Hurry up and scram to the side. There's no place for you to speak here. Lin Yi smiled slightly, then glared at him and said, Who do you think you are? I already said I don't know you. Why are you still blindly interfering here? Even if you want to play dirty, you shouldn't play like this. Senior brother Wang was immediately angry, but he was still thinking that he didn't use his sword. So what did Lin Yi mean? Could it be some kind of secret code? Seeing that the one surnamed Wang didn't say anything else, Lin Yi turned his head and said to Su Lingqiong, All right, what exactly is going on? All of us are clear in our hearts. I just came back and can't be bothered to waste time with you. Hurry up and scram, lest you guys blame me for not warning you when you're unlucky. Pretentious boss, your pretentious act is indeed first-rate. You really nearly scared me. Too bad this young master isn't someone who grows up being scared. Today's matter isn't over. Su Lingqiong thought that he definitely had Lin Yi in the bag, so he said with a cold smile, while thinking about how to incite that senior brother Wang to make a move to deal with Lin Yi, and then he would sit back and reap the benefits. You must be looking for a beating. I can't do anything about it either. Lin Yi shrugged his shoulders with a helpless expression, then pointed at Su Lingqiong and said, All right then, you stole my medicinal pills. Don't you have to give me an explanation today? Su Lingqiong was stunned, then burst into laughter. Lin Yi, are you at your wit's end here? Originally, I thought that you were just pestering endlessly. I didn't think that you even know how to make irresponsible remarks. This young master, the dignified Central Chamber of Commerce's shopkeeper, would steal your medicinal pills?